Donald Trump's presidential bid hangs in the balance as he's ordered to pay his sexual abuse accuser $5 million.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 10th of May. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Good to have you on board, leading our news on this Wednesday morning. A jury in New York has decided that Donald Trump did sexually abuse the writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s, but rejected the claim that he raped her. Reacting to the verdict, Trump called it part of the biggest witch hunt of all time.
The Home Secretary has warned the House of Lords not to defy the will of the British people as peers prepare to debate the illegal migration bill for the first time. Her comments follow the arrival of a barge set to house asylum seekers in the UK.
The government was right to hand police extra powers, says the Prime Minister, as the backlash continues to the arrest of anti-monarchy protesters. It comes as the Mayor of London tells the police to conduct a review of coronation policing.
And Sir Keir Starmer has refused to rule out a coalition with the Liberal Democrats if Labour fail to win a majority at the next election. Despite major gains in the local elections, pollsters are in doubt that the party could secure an overall majority.
So why doesn't he just say, you know, if needs be, I'll do what it takes to get this socialist government in power?
He can't be seen to not think he's going to be able to achieve a full majority. It's all about optics. He's been told he can't do it.
Yeah, but I think the optics are very bad, that people can't see him as ever coming to the point or having a decisive position.
Well, he was very decisive on the SNP and absolutely ruled out any possibility of a coalition with them. But anyway, we want your votes this morning. I've been asking on social media and so many of you very kindly responded, and we will continue to plead because you have to get your votes in for the Trick Awards by Friday. We've also been nominated for a National Reality TV Award. You've got a bit longer on that one. We're so thrilled to have both the nominations and we would love your support. It is a public vote. And don't forget...
What? Forget what?
You can also vote for Eamonn in the Trick Awards for the best news presenter.
Please, thank you very much indeed. All very well. Right, here's the top story this morning. A jury has found that Donald Trump did sexually abuse the magazine writer E.J. Carroll in the 1990s.
Yeah, the former president was ordered to pay her $5 million in damages after the jury found his comments, calling the accusations a hoax and a lie, harmed her reputation.
Now, after the verdict, Donald Trump took to his social media, Truth Social, to deny that he even knew the woman.
I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. The verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time.
Well, you know, for not knowing her, it's cost him a lot of money at the end of the day. I was just looking, they broke it down here as to what it was. Yeah, sexual assault, he was fined $2.7 million for. The battery, another $2 million, and defamation, $280,000. That gives a total of, well, practically $5 million. Joining us now from Los Angeles, the attorney. We'd love to hear what you think, Gloria Allred. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Well, it definitely is a victory for E. Jean Carroll, and she alleged that she was raped. And even though the jury did not find in this civil lawsuit that she was in fact raped, instead finding that she was sexually abused, they also did find that she was defamed. And they found in favor of her to the extent of $5 million in damages, as you have clearly stated. She was certainly helped by that Access Hollywood tape, which was played for the jury and played for Donald Trump in his deposition testimony under oath before the trial. And he was asked about that by Ms. Carroll's attorney. And he stood his ground on the Access Hollywood tape and didn't try to get out from under it, basically affirmed that he believed that if you're a star, you know, you can grab a woman by her genital area. And of course, he used a pejorative term for that. So he indicated, yes, he's a star, and I don't think that helped him with the jury. And then he didn't testify in front of the jury, which he didn't have to do. But that would have been a complete disaster if he had done that, because he can't help but lie. That's what he does.
Yeah, well, E. Jean Carroll described the victory as not just for her, but for every woman who has suffered because she was not believed. And that's really been his narrative. He's dismissed it. He has destroyed her reputation. And the jury, which was predominantly male, it has to be said, came out and found in her favour.
Yes, they did. It was a 9-member jury, and they did have to reach a unanimous verdict, and they found in favor of Ms. Carroll and against Mr. Trump. Now, his attorney has taken to the airwaves and said in Mr. Trump's defense he can't get a fair trial in New York City. We do know that in the last election, New York went for Biden, not for Trump, who is a New Yorker, by the way, Mr. Trump. And but nevertheless, I think the judge did everything possible to give Mr. Trump, former President Trump, a fair trial. But he will appeal because that's what Donald Trump does. He's appealed so many times in so many civil lawsuits, and that's what he does. And he goes all the way to the top. And for example, when he challenged the election results, I think there were something like 40 or 60 lawsuits. He appealed every one, and he lost every lawsuit. And that's what he does. So good luck to him. We'll see what happens.
Just let's talk about Miss Carroll about this. A big win for her, Gloria, but why would she not have instigated a prosecution, a criminal prosecution, as opposed to this civil prosecution?
Well, that's a fair question. And the answer is because it was too late under the law. There's a different statute of limitations, meaning a different time period during which a victim of a crime has to file a police report and then for their prosecution to proceed. Too late for her to do it. She indicated in her testimony that she didn't want to call the police. There's no legal requirement that she does. And however, she was within the time period to file a civil lawsuit. And that is because a new law was passed last Thanksgiving in New York. And I am a New York lawyer as well as a California lawyer. A new law was passed called the Adult Survivors Act, which essentially revived old claims and allowed victims, adult survivors of adult abuse, even from many years ago, to file a lawsuit. She took advantage of that, and that's how she got to court into a trial in her case. She was also helped by the fact that she was able to call what we call 2 prior bad act witnesses. In other words, 2 other women who alleged they had also been sexually abused by Mr. Trump, that he had a common scheme, plan, design. In other words, that he sexually abuses women. He grabs their breasts, he grabs other parts of their body without their consent. And I think that helped him. That's also going to be an argument that he makes on appeal, that they should not have been allowed to testify.
I mean, it seems to me as an observer in another country that they should be given damages as well as E. Jean Carroll. But, you know, that's just my opinion. Just give us some of the legal context, not just this case. You've talked about the numerous legal cases that Trump has seen, but the context of this arraignment that he recently has had in relation to the porn star. The timing of all of this as he's trying to get the Republican nomination. I mean, there's lots of talk about whether that affects his politics. I don't want to ask you about that. But there are these other cases going on.
Yes, the New York City prosecution, which you just rightly mentioned, where he has been indicted. He's pled not guilty. And that case is likely to come to trial next year. Then he's also facing a big investigation by the special counsel of Justice Department into an allegation of obstruction of justice. Hasn't been indicted yet. Maybe it never will be, but likely, in my opinion, will be, for not turning over documents, top secret documents, classified documents, even after they were subpoenaed. That's one case. And then, of course, there's the January 6th investigation into the insurrection. in Washington, D.C. That's a Justice Department investigation by special counsel, and that is heating up as well. There's the case in Georgia, which is a state case in which he is being investigated, may be indicted this summer for election interference in Georgia. So he's in a world of hurt. He's got a lot going on. It may or may not affect him politically. Right now, he's ahead for the Republican nomination for president for the next time. But there's going to be quite a bit that he's going to have to face before even the primary happens.
Okay. Gloria, I mean, you just reciting those cases that are lined up. I mean, my limited experience, thankfully limited, in a courtroom, I've just found draining. I found it an awful experience. The fact that this man would contemplate running the most powerful country in the world and fighting all these court cases, it must be, I don't know how he would find time to just undertake the mundane things in his life, never mind be president.
Well, yes, you could say that, but on the other hand, he's actually exploiting the fact that he is being investigated, that he is being indicted, that in fact he may face these other charges as well. And he is raising money. It's a big, what we call a grift. He is raising money, millions of dollars, calling himself a victim. It's a witch hunt and all of the other phrases that he uses time and again. And he's raising that after, essentially, for example, on the January 6th case, based on the big lie that he really was elected, that Biden is not the elected president, which absolutely he is. And by the way, his fundraising off of poor people who believe in him is being investigated also by the special counsel. There's always a possibility that he may end up being, charged for what he is doing based on what he should know is the big lie, because he's been told that by a number of his own attorneys.
Gloria, finally, just one other legal question. Just explain to us in the UK, where this is not possible, how in the States he could still run for president from behind bars if that were to happen.
Well, again, a great question. And the answer is, in our history in the United States, there is actually someone who was convicted of a felony who still ran for president of the United States. His name was Eugene Debs. And that was many years ago. He was in a jail cell serving time for the conviction of a felony, and still he could run for president of the United States. So we'll have to see what happens. If Trump is convicted, I wouldn't be surprised if he would do the same.
Gloria, thank you for your insight. Really fascinating, always very good talking to you. We've got to say goodbye to you there, and thank you very much indeed for all of that this morning. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And that's Gloria Allred. She's an attorney and giving us the whole take on Donald Trump. There was a picture of his wife, Melania, there, who we don't see too much of these days. But that must be a big strain on her, for her husband to be accused and found guilty of sexual assault. In this
by
case.
any normal measure, you would think so. But, I mean, he has not been far from these sorts of allegations for the entirety of the time he's been in the public eye. I mean, those Access Hollywood tapes were around before he became president. She must be used to hearing all of this sort of talk, especially if that is the way he talks openly. So, maybe she just doesn't mind.
Well, as Tammy Wynette would say, stand by your man. What do you think of Melania? Would you stand by your man if your man was Donald Trump?
Sorry. No. Not even for a nanosecond.
Not even for a nanosecond, says Isabel. There you go. More reaction to that throughout the programme. Let us know what you think. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can get in touch on the Twitter sphere at GBNews. The time fast approaching 6:15.
Now, the Home Secretary has written in the Telegraph today and warned the House of Lords not to defy the will of the British people as peers debate the illegal migration bill for the first time.
Now, her comments follow the arrival of a barge, a huge barge set to house hundreds of asylum seekers, Joining us now for more is political analyst Leon Emirali. So, where do we get now with this legislation, and how obstructive are you expecting the House of Lords to be, if at all?
I think they're going to be very frustrating more than obstructive. They can't necessarily stop this legislation from passing, but they can delay it for potentially up to a year. There's a Lib Dem peer, Brian Paddock, who has actually sought to quash the legislation entirely, which would be very, very rare. So I'm not expecting that to happen. But we could see a number of cross-party peers effectively condemning this policy and looking to frustrate the government on what is a central point of their policy agenda.
And what is her argument? Because she's saying this is the will of the people, and obviously they have a mandate from the 2019 election where they said they wanted to get back control of their borders. But I believe that specific line was in relation to the European Union and the free movement of people, not necessarily about illegal migration. So is there a mandate there?
Well, I think there is certainly a mandate for migration to be limited, and we've seen that in successive Conservative Party manifestos that they have been elected on. But this is more of a political issue for the Prime Minister as well. I mean, we had David Cameron with his long-term economic plan. We had Boris Johnson with his Get Brexit Done. For Rishi Sunak, that slogan is Stop the Boats. And I think this is a central tenet of that policy that he hopes will carry him to a general election victory. So I think it's clearly something that the public and politicians are worried about.
Well, on the subject of a general election, and after the local council elections, everybody's juggling the figures and looking at the way it could project on a national stage. And Keir Starmer, when he's saying, hey, do you fancy, would you shack up with the Lib Dems if it meant getting power? And he blah, 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 just dodges it all the time. Why can't they just say, yeah, if it took that, I'd do that?
Well, I think this is the question on everyone's lips. We all know that ultimately he is going to have to talk to the Lib Dems if the projections continue along the way we expect them to do. But I think the reason why he's reluctant, Eamonn, is because if he does say he's going to go into coalition with the Lib Dems, that means a number of things that could impact things like Brexit, that could impact things like the way in which we vote, the voting system. So we know the Lib Dems have got a number of conditions that they would probably put towards the Labour Party if they wanted to enter.
Right, so if I was leader of the Labour Party, I'd say, you know what might come on the agenda, but this could impact a number of things that we're talking about, and therefore it'd be silly to even go there at this early stage. But what we intend to win big, we intend to do whatever. It's the shiftiness of, not answering anything.
He looks a little bit shifty, doesn't it? And I think it's beginning to set that narrative in play. We had last week the Sue Gray debacle, and the questions answered about who's being truthful and when that conversation first started. And again, we see Keir Starmer deflecting on these key questions. So he looks as though he can't be trusted by the public. And I think that's a worrying look, given his central policy or central sort of personality position is that he is trustworthy. He's not like the Conservatives who went before him.
I saw a comment piece doing the rounds yesterday evening saying that actually the proposition of a Liberal-Labour pact could actually play into the hands of Rishi Sunak heading into the next election because coalitions are deemed to be so chaotic and such a kind of...
Well, he might need to have a coalition as well.
Well, the problem is, Eamonn, no one's going to go into coalition with the Conservatives. So I think that we're probably looking at this chaos, and it will be chaos because the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, which was implemented when the Lib Dems went into coalition with the Conservatives in 2010, that's been repealed. And the idea of that was to keep the government in place for 5 years so the country had stability. That's gone. So if Labour did enter in coalition with the Lib Dems, SNP, whoever it might be...
Well, it definitely won't be SNP.
Well, so
he did rule that out
so
yesterday.
He says.
Yeah.
But, I think when power's there, you do what you need to do. But that could be chaotic for the country, and we could see the government collapse after a year, 6 months, back to the polls, and we've got that instability that hopefully, we were hoping, we've seen the back of, but it might not be the case.
Coalitions, we just want to ask you, listening and watching at home, what's your view on a coalition? Do you think it's power shared and everything more fair, or does nothing ever get done? Let us know your thoughts. Get in touch.
Leon, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And you can speak again later. Thank you.
With the time at 6:19, let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
Another phone hacking trial involving the Duke of Sussex begins today. Prince Harry will enter the witness box. What, is he back in London again?
No, he's attending next month, but it's getting underway.
Oh, right. And this time suing the Mirror Group over what he's calling unlawful information gathering. The tabloid is contesting the claims, arguing that some have been brought too late.
The first baby with DNA from 3 people has been born in the UK following a special IVF procedure. The treatment aims to prevent the passing on of defective genes from mothers by giving the baby DNA from its mother, father, and a female donor.
Bad news this. Irish band Wild Youth has failed to qualify for the Eurovision final in Liverpool. They were among the 5 acts that were knocked out in the first live semi-final of the week. The 10 countries that made it through include Portugal, Sweden and Croatia. Pity we just should give you the other 7 as well, but there's 3 of a possible 10. Rishi Sunak has defended police powers used during the coronation despite backlash over the treatment of those poor wee protesters who were in the back of the van and they were arrested.
Eamonn.
When their day was spoilt.
We know your views.
They would have had their deck chairs and their bunting all ready to sit there, and then there was nasty policemen took them away and spoilt their little protest, their little celebration that was going on.
The new Public Order Act allows officers to stop and search anyone on suspicion of planning to cause disruption. So let's speak to former Met Police Detective John Taylor. Those are Eamonn's views. What are your views on the, first of all, arrest of specifically the 6 that hadn't done anything and didn't have anything pertaining to arrest on them?
Hadn't done anything yet.
Yes. Very interesting point. And then the apology from the Metropolitan Police.
Yes, morning Isabel, morning Eamonn. I'm pretty similar in many ways, and it was nice to see Commissioner Rowley come out and say it was unfortunate. That's his word, and I sort of agree with it, because when you start to look at the new powers that were put in place, they were actually used very effectively and very correctly. And what a lot of people will be upset about, or especially the protesters, is that they weren't given the chance to protest. Well, a lot were. And of course, the information came into the police that there may be some who were looking to disrupt far more than just peacefully demonstrate. So the powers are put in place because of the information that came in about possibly fake stewards that were carrying paint or rape alarms to cause that disruption. And that's exactly what the bill is meant to put in place, to make sure this type of disruption that we've seen in the past on the M25, at the Grand National, and all the other events. This is what we wanted to stop, and that's exactly what the police did. And I think it was a very successful police operation.
Except they're now going to have to go cap in hand and kiss everybody's feet and say, we were very bad and we shouldn't have done that. And there seems to be this campaign brewing to say these poor protesters, there weren't protesters, these poor celebratory people who'd come into London.
I don't care what their views were. They have a right to express their views, because we live in a free country and we believe in free speech. Otherwise, we'll be under Xi Jinping.
Why do we care? Why do we care how they were treated?
Because I don't want to live in a dictatorship, and I want to be able to speak out against someone I disagree with. Your little son was sitting there in the crowd. If they had have spread mace on a horse or set off an alarm and a horse trampled into the crowd or whatever, I suspect your view would be totally different. Do I want free speech curtailed so my son can have a nice day out? No.
Do you know what? Couldn't care less. Who wakes up in the morning? John, here's my point. Who wakes up in the morning of all the things, maybe I can't pay my food bill, maybe my electricity's gone off, I might have a flat tyre in my car, whatever, but I'll be thinking, the monarchy, it shouldn't exist. That's I just can't get in the head of people that is their priority in life.
I understand, and I actually agree with you both, but I do believe in a right to express your opinion. But one thing we've got to know now is that we've never lived in a society that allows us now to complain basically about anything. And because of the platforms like social media, you tend to find that there's other people out there with the same sort of reasoning or understanding that you may have, or your complaints, as you say, Eamonn. But I agree. I mean, people wake up and think, well, that's what I'm going to do. It just seems surely there's other things, especially when it comes down to the coronation. The reason I say that is the coronation, as a lot of people have said, is once in a lifetime. So when you've got the Grand National happens every year, they'll say, oh, well, we'll target that next year, we'll target that next year. That coronation was once, and 99.8% of everybody wanted to see the coronation. They didn't want to see the protesters. So for me, there's sort of a time and a place when have your voice heard. There was no need for it to happen at the coronation. And bear in mind, we're not just talking about anti-monarchists here. You had Just Stop Oil. You had Insulate Britain. Everybody taking part of using that platform to get their voice heard. Well, perhaps that wasn't the time to do it for the coronation. But yet, in this country, we don't have a dictatorship. People have the right to voice their opinions. What they don't have is a thing to disrupt. It wasn't that long ago that we saw that horse, that police horse, sort of stampede down the road, and that poor police officer went straight into a road sign, injuring herself. That's what can happen.
Yeah, I remember that. That was during the Black Lives Matter protest, and there was a huge number of injured police officers. That was awful. Look, Sadiq Khan, very unhappy with the Metropolitan Police. He's asked for an investigation into this. It does feel like every other day the Metropolitan Police are in trouble for something or other. Where do you think that will go? I mean, where do you think an investigation will land on the balance of all of this, given that someone like David Davis, a Conservative Party member, has also said that these new rules under this Public Order Act are actually just a bit too crude and need finessing?
Yeah, I think he's wrong, because when you've got this type of disruption occurring on the M25, as I say, or national events, you're going to need these type of powers put in place for the police to be able to do something. Because until then, we can't. If somebody is going to lock themselves onto a fence or a road, etc., with glue. Again, what people must understand is the police, even here, have operated to what they call that mnemonic plan. They were proportionate, legal, they're accountable, and it's necessary. The police are used to this. The police are used to scrutiny. The police are used to being criticised the whole time. But at the end of the day, they have a job to do. And the new Public Order Bill 2023 was put in place by Parliament, and it was used effectively by the police. So I don't think anything really will come of this, apart from, as we always hear, there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and they will be learned. But no, I think the police acted exactly well. And what must be said, we talk about the Metropolitan Police. I'm very fortunate to know other forces. I was proud of the fact that you had Essex, Hertfordshire, Kent, all these other forces working alongside the Met. They're actually making the arrests together. That's not really seen. So I think it's, congratulations to all the police officers that took part.
John, thanks for your views. You've been listening to John Taylor, former Metropolitan Police detective there. Thank you, John. With that, let us know what you think of all of this, and do stay with us. We're talking weather.
Yes, it was a bit wild yesterday afternoon in London, and especially the huge balls of hail. There was miniature floods in the streets. Yeah.
Was there?
Yes.
Didn't see any
wild weather, and there's more thunderstorms on the way. You have huge claps of thunder, sort of 7, 8 o'clock.
Don't know how
we'll be finding out if those have gone away or if more could be on the way after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back at 6:30. Still to come on the programme this morning.
Just before 7 o'clock, Howard Cox. Howard is a fuel campaigner. He's now launched his campaign to become the Mayor of London, based on all the punitive charges there are getting your car in and out of London. So he's taking on Sadiq Khan. Does he stand any chance of success? Talking to him about that.
And then our big debate at 7:20, we were talking about the actor on the hit Netflix show Heartland, who said only gay actors should play gay roles. We'll ask if he's right.
What even is Heartland? Do you know what that is?
I haven't seen it.
No.
But
I love how we're supposed to know what these TV series are.
I thought you'd seen them all.
There's such a lot of rubbish. I told you, I'm going through this thing where I'm going to cancel all these stations. We don't need to see Succession or all these things that are on. It's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Do you know, when was the last time you ever sat down and you thought, that's a really good movie? It's not, the movies now they want and they Oscar nominate are all things that have to pull at your heartstrings.
You loved that Banshees of Inisherin.
I didn't. I liked it. I loved it. It was very interesting. Yes, I'm not criticising that film. That was okay. But all these ones that are just all about depression and whatever happened to having a good Western? Why isn't
I like
Mission
a good
Impossible
rom-com.
nominated? Rom-com.
Rom-coms all day long. Not enough of those.
We used to make a lot of rom-coms in the early 90s.
Yeah, the Harry Met Sally era and the Richard Curtis movies. I love them all. Notting Hill.
She's horrible.
Who?
Meg
she
Ryan.
is, yeah.
She shouldn't be ever allowed to be interviewed.
Well, I don't think she does them anymore, does she?
I'm not
After
surprised.
that Parky car crash.
She's bad. She's bad. You can tell her, when you interview her, she just glazes over and you go, whoop, she's going to explode, and she explodes. That's interesting. But just another true story from people I've interviewed down through the years.
Yeah.
When I interviewed her in Paris. It's a long story. But anyway, the point is, people didn't believe me until they saw the Parky interview.
Yeah, there you go.
Because they all think there are a lot of characters get away with this. There are people that are actors. I'd love to name them.
Come on.
And people associate them with the lovely, cuddly character that they have.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not like that at all. They're the ones. They're the fascinating ones. They have been outed. Most of them have been outed in some way, but she's one, Meg Ryan's one. GBviews at gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews.
Right, commuters are being warned to prepare for more travel disruption today after the Met Office issued a yellow weather warning with thunderstorms and heavy rain battering parts of Britain.
So what does yellow weather warning mean? Is that what colours do they go? I presume red is the end of the world.
Amber is the middle.
Well, what's the difference between yellow and amber? They're practically the same colour.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't you just have green, it's going to be a good day, amber, it's going to be a not so good day, and then red? You see, why do we even give credit to these systems? And then they name them, Trixie, Storm Millie. So what a lot of nonsense. There was a big storm. Anyway, you say there were snowballs coming through the air yesterday.
Hailstones and flooding.
I never saw a thing.
Yes, Harpenden yesterday with water gushing down the
Harpenden?
street in sort of Berkshire sort of way, is it?
Why do you say Harpenden?
I saw it on Twitter. And Hammersmith bus station. It was really bad.
Well,
anyway, don't take my opinion.
Or Hammersmith, but Jim Dale will tell us what it was like yesterday. Jim is a meteorologist. Morning, Jim.
Good morning to you. Good morning.
Right, what was it? How would you sum up yesterday?
I would say it was the start of the thunderstorm season. Long time coming. April normally delivers us a few showers. It tended not to. We didn't see too many thunderstorms, but I think yesterday was a good meteorologist day. Watching what Isabel's just described, the hail and the flooding and some lightning, and I mean it's a normal thing at this time of year. You know we get the right recipe of temperature, humidity, low pressure, and presto, the buttons get pressed and we get these kind of events. And by the way, you don't not get them everywhere, which is what Eamonn, why you missed it. Many people saw it, or some people saw it, because they're hit and miss, and they spring on you. So sometimes they can arrive as a bit of a shock or surprise, and deliver their goods.
Right, so how long is this warning in place then? If you say we normally have it in April, we're getting it sort of mid-May, you know, what's the sort of window?
We can stretch till September now because we are in the thunderstorm season, much as the United States. So when the recipe is correct, we will get these events more and more. So a little bit more heat in the atmosphere. We've got that now. It's not overheat. Obviously, we're waiting for the hot spells to arrive, but there's enough heat and instability there for these to carry on. But in terms of where we are now, today, particularly in the southeast, East Anglia down through Kent and Surrey, Sussex, these sort of places. I think those are the prone zones today, later today, not this morning. It's a beautiful morning for many of us this morning, actually. So make the most of that one. And into tomorrow as well, to a certain degree, sporadic outbreaks here or there. We'll get rid of it probably by Friday and Saturday, better days, I think. So it's really just watch your backs today and tomorrow.
Although I was looking at my phone app, and you know when you can see a whole week ahead for the forecast, and it was just rain, apart from the weekend.
Apparently, Jim, they say that's down to Britain being nearly constantly in the path of the jet stream, and that brings a conveyor belt of low-pressure weather systems.
Yeah, that's correct. That's exactly what it is. It might not necessarily have the ferocious winds we get in the wintertime sometimes associated with it, but you do get the low pressure areas, and the low pressure is the designator, if you like, for these thunderstorms to occur and everything within them. And I think there's certain places yesterday, Devon, Somerset, you've mentioned, happened, and that's a new one on me. But anyway, these things do occur, and they can be quite dangerous. So it's not a case of doing the wrong thing within these things, as in walking across open fields, being in your yacht at Eamonn in the Channel, that your super luxury yacht sitting there in open waters, not the place to be. Ridges of mountains or hills, not the place to be. So certain and under trees, obviously, the classic, not the place to be. Certain places you can be a little bit safer.
Sit in and watch the telly, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jim Dale there, the meteorologist. Thank you.
We just had a recommendation of a movie for you, Eamonn.
Yep.
A message for Eamonn. I saw a really great film the other day. You might like it. It was called Ticket to Paradise. There's Brian Stafford. Little tip for you.
Who's in Ticket to Paradise?
Oh, now you're asking. I've seen it advertised on my
George
home
Clooney?
screen. Yes, and Julia Roberts, is it?
Could well be.
Yeah.
And the two of them, they used to be married, and they end up on an island or something, and I think it's their passion is reawakened. They hate each other.
Well, that sounds like my kind of film.
Yes.
It's a rom-com. He likes a Western, Brian. But anyway, I will take your recommendation and run with it. But listen, keep those thoughts coming in, and do stay with us as we're asking, could the answer to NHS staffing be actually getting school leavers to work as doctors? We'll discuss that in the papers with David Mellor and
what do you
Emma
mean, school
Barnett.
leavers
No
to
idea.
work as doctors?
No idea. First time I've seen it.
Oh, dear, dear.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Time at 20 minutes to 7. We're just going to bring you up to date with the way the morning newspapers look. The Mail asks if this is the end of Donald Trump's bid to be president after a jury found he sexually abused the writer Eugene Carroll.
The Eye is focusing on the Archbishop of Canterbury's political battle with the government over its policy on migrants.
Times says Britain's poised to blacklist Russia's Wagner Group as a terrorist organisation.
Here's the Express. It leads with Britain's catastrophic as it describes obesity crisis as 7,000 diabetes sufferers die needlessly every year.
And that's a big story. And finally, The Sun says Meghan Markle has hired Kim Kardashian's former bodyguard as the Duchess revamps it. Why do we
Very
care?
strange
Why do we care?
story.
Throw that story in the bin.
Well,
That's
the
a
front
really
of The Sun.
nobody cares.
Yeah. Two people who don't live in this country.
What? We weren't going to raise it because we know about the news.
Yeah. We're all about the
Whereas,
news.
you know, who knows whether you guys are going to do, but, you know.
Stop it. Don't start. I've got 2 of them this morning.
That was David
Emma, I'm
Muller.
with you, Isabel. I'll keep it on
Oh,
track.
dear.
Right. David, let's start with you then. Donald Trump. And can I just say, for the record...
Yes, I want to
because
talk
we've
about
had-
Kim Kardashian.
We've had a few emails and I've had a few tweets as well saying, why aren't we talking about Hunter Biden? This is supposed to be balanced. The reason we're not is because we are covering the news, which means we talk about the new stuff. And the new stuff is that Trump has not been found in his favour and the Hunter Biden stuff is not new.
What has Hunter Biden done, incidentally,
Well,
now that you've raised
that's a whole other story.
What's he done?
Well, ages ago, there were a lot of allegations around his laptop and what was on there, which we don't have to go into now, but obviously it incensed the right. But what has Trump done, according to this jury? Sorry.
A woman called E. Jean Carroll. I don't know why she's called E.
I think it's very chic.
But she is called E. Jean.
Well, that's this.
And a jury in a civil case, let me say, found Donald Trump had sexually abused her, and the total fines amount to $5 million. Needless to say, Trump has said that you know that it's not true, and he said it in a usual volcanic Trump way. But it raises an interesting question. I mean, first of all, can Trump, with the mass of lawsuits that there are against him, can he credibly survive an election campaign and win? And you know, as one looks at the world news, and we're going to come on to Russia and stuff like that in due time, provided we don't have to deal with Kim Kardashian, of course. And what we see here is the greatest country in the world has got a clapped-out old 80-year-old as the president, and Donald Trump, who is, he just is totally and utterly unreliable and dishonest. Is that the best they can really do?
Well, his defence is that he hasn't had a fair trial because this is not a Trump area. In fact, the defendant, or now the successful claimant, is a registered Democrat. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, he can say it. But the point is, why does he get himself into these scrapes where people bring forward these things? I mean, there are plenty of other candidates for office who have been controversial, but they haven't had this, this trail of lawsuits. And, of course, it's so typical of Trump, this business that a woman is there that he can just grab any part of her that he wants. I mean, this is
I think
he's
the
a
amazing
revolting
skill
old
of
man,
the man
basically.
is how has he held on to his existing wife? That's what I'd like to know. Why she looks at these headlines and these the court case like this and stays with him. I mean, it absolutely baffles me.
It baffles me too. I mean, the problem, Dave Mellor's asking whether Trump can continue his political career. We know that the Entertainment Tonight tape, where he talks about grabbing women by parts of their anatomy that I won't mention at breakfast, he went on after that to be elected president.
Yep,
I know.
And he has not lost his support in the Republican Party.
No.
The Republican Party are determined, it seems, to choose him as their candidate. The only person who looked like he might challenge was Ron DeSantis, who tried to put himself forward as Trump without the baggage.
Yes.
But the baggage is the point,
Well, the
Trump.
baggage, if we applied it to political rules and standing in this country, David Mellor, would bring him down. There is no
he
doubt.
wouldn't be anywhere, wouldn't even start. But you see, this is the trouble with America. You see, Trump was a Democrat. He was never a Republican, and he becomes effectively an entryist into the Republican Party. And if you have enough people who are so determined that you should become the candidate that they will put up with all the things that Trump supporters put up with, it's very difficult to stop him when it's a primary-based campaign where a minority of people can actually determine the outcome by being totally and utterly determined that their man will win. It doesn't mean he'll win a general election, of course.
No, but I mean, I think the problem is you're framing this as they put up with it. I think it's celebrated by a certain portion of the Republican primary.
But, you know, the only thing I don't like, there's no point in going on, it's the Republicans, as if the Democrats are good. Hunter Biden was a disgrace. And you know what bothers me? What bothers me is that Joe Biden is a clapped out, old, very old for his years, 8-year-old.
Joe Biden is too old.
We cannot just deal with Trump and not deal with the equally awful problems of Joe Biden.
One of them has been found to have sexually abused a woman and the other has not. And that is the difference right now, frankly. Joe Biden is old. Yes, he is. Joe Biden has always been a bit gaff-prune. That is true. That is not in anywhere near the magnitude of
and Hunter
just the
Biden,
base.
who he takes
and Hunter
around
Biden's
with
not
him.
elected to anything. Yeah,
Anyway, let's
these
not
are
bother with this.
different.
But I just think, we are here to try and discuss objectively these things, not take a partisan
But
view.
I'm not taking a partisan view. I'm saying that this is the case of where the Republicans are at. The Democrats have a candidate that has issues.
And the Democrats are wonderful and the Republicans aren't. I don't buy into that.
Who has just been found to have sexually abused a woman. And it is not going to hit his poll ratings at all.
Well, we don't know that, do we?
There is a story at the front of the Telegraph. Now, I'm a great believer in apprenticeships. I absolutely think I'm not necessarily a believer in third-level education, and I think apprenticeships are a fantastic thing. But this has to be a nonsense story on the front of the Daily Telegraph, and the government, they don't train enough doctors, they don't pay for enough doctors. So, Emma, what are they proposing?
They're proposing that 1 in 10 doctors now will not have a university degree of this new cohort going through. So they will just do an on-the-job apprenticeship as a doctor. Now, it's doctors and nurses. For nursing, I can absolutely see this being a valuable non-academic route into nursing. I don't think we need to have purely academic routes into nursing.
Absolutely.
But my God, I want my doctor to have a medical degree.
But I think it'd be wonderful to go to a doctor who can't read and write. You know, this is a new experience.
Stop it, you.
No, I mean, I look forward to it. I hope I live long enough to see it
There are
happen.
doctors and doctors, and, you could have an A-level, full, whatever the grading system is now, the top of the class candidate who's perfectly bright, perfectly capable, who can be there to assist in theatre, learning, watching. For example, my cousin, she's a junior doctor. She's been, fully qualified, but she's often in theatre doing very menial tasks for the first little while. You could do that as an intelligent 18-year-old.
Yeah, but the point is that they will then be a fully fledged doctor. They can work their way into other things. But also, just at the very basic level, let's take a GP. I want a doctor who understands and is up to date with all the literature, has the training in reading academic papers, so they know the differences that different medications will do.
Yes,
and that's exactly the answer, Isabel.
Exactly
that's what it is. It's cheap and it's a quick fix, and it's
Amanda
not the right
Pritchard,
fix.
the head of the NHS, said this radical new approach could see tens of thousands of school leavers becoming doctors and nurses or other key healthcare roles.
I mean, you ask yourself, It's said that mad people, and I'm a mad person, have to ask themselves, are they mad or is the rest of the world mad?
Yeah.
I mean, I now do believe, actually, it's rather a comfort to me that it's the rest of the world that's mad, not just me.
I think that too. David, let's talk about energy
But you
prices.
see, it would appeal to me. If I was at school, I would think, I don't think I'm smart enough to be a doctor, but I could learn on the job and pick it up if someone was showing me how to do it. You know?
I mean, I can see but actually the other side of the appeal is that something will go wrong.
Yeah.
And you know,
badly.
Those poor kids are probably going to be at the forefront of that, and that's really worrying.
Well, when things go wrong in medicine, they really go wrong. Can we talk about energy bills? Because we've been told that, you know, once the spring comes, it's all over and everything will be back to normal. But the news yesterday, David, is that these bills are unlikely to fall below £2,000 for another year or
Exactly.
so.
And they're likely to go on up because of the problem with gas and Russia. And, you know, I think that there's no doubt about it that energy bills are crippling a whole lot of decent, hard-working British families, and there's no reason to think that's going to stop anytime soon. And that's what the Telegraph is saying online, and no doubt it'll find its way into the main paper shortly.
OK, right, we're going to leave it there for now. David and Emma, thank you for that impassioned debate through the papers. We'll have more from them after about 7:30.
OK, meanwhile, we're going to talk about the mayoral contest in London, and the campaigner, the Fair Fuel campaigner, Howard Cox, has announced he will take on the existing mayor, Sadiq Khan, when the election happens.
Yes, and lots of people have been trying to get into politics for some time, mainly because of his views on this. He's opposed to the controversial Clean Air ULEZ charge. So let's speak to the man himself. Good morning to you. We've asked you a few times in the past whether or not you were going to get into politics, and the news is out.
Yes, thank you. Good morning to both of you. It's nice to be on the show. Yeah, it's not been an easy decision. 13 years fighting to keep taxation low quite successfully. But in the process of doing that, I built up a very big following, and I can't ignore the requests. Very nice, and I feel very humble about this. But they've asked me to stand against Sadiq Khan, the wrecking ball mayor of London.
Against him on simply that he charges you £12.50 to get in and out of London in your car, which may be very inconvenient and may be very costly, but a lot of people, Howard, would say, well, he's making the air fresher, cleaner to breathe.
And there's the thing, he's not, because his own data, Transport for London, have come out with a report that said expanding the ULEZ to the M25 to the whole of Greater London will not make any demonstrable difference to the air we breathe. And it's not just that. He's actually admitted that he's trying to fill up his very big deficit that he's built up in his mismanagement of London. And the only way he can do it, an easy way of doing it, is the good old cash cow driver. And that's what most politicians see drivers as. And, you know, I've voted Tory for 50 years, and it pains me to say that I can't see them beating Khan. And I know that the anti-Khan vote is strong, and I'm going to try and rally around as many of the opposition to Khan to try and back me to become mayor.
But Howard, as mayor, you wouldn't just be dealing with the issue of ULEZ. You would have a broad portfolio, including things like the arrests over the coronation weekend. People will be interested to know your views when it comes to things like that as well.
Well, obviously, I'm building up a manifesto, but the three big things for me at the moment is to scrap ULEZ, cut crime, and that means more visible policing, more bobbies on the beat type thing, and particularly making things safer for particularly women walking home at night to the station, etc. These are the sorts of things. Crime has gone rocketed under Sadiq Khan's tenure. We see there's 150 teenagers have died since he started because of fighting with knife crime, etc. So you're absolutely right to ask that question. I'm doing this with a heavy heart, but I'm committed to this. I've been around the block a long time, and I know a lot about a lot of things. And one of the things is my daughter, for example, she lives in London, can't find a house to buy because she can't afford it. So I'm looking at social housing on brownfield sites and reducing planning issues, etc. All those sorts of things. I'm very up to speed in exactly what's needed from the mayor.
Dare I say, You've been in politics 5 minutes and you've dodged my question, which was, what's your view on the arrests during the coronation weekend? Sadiq Khan has come out saying they were outrageous. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I disagree. Yes, I don't think they are outrageous. These people were actually ruining a day for the mass majority who wanted to go and see. And these people that actually protest, what they should be doing is what I've done for 13 years. You go through an objective process of trying to convince the government, stand for politics, set up a party, all those sorts of things. These people are in the minority, but they've got a massive vocal voice. And I do not condemn the police. I think they did the right thing.
OK.
They're in the minority. You'd be standing as an independent, Howard?
No, I'm standing for a Reform UK party. As an independent, I couldn't afford to do it. It's a huge cost. Even the deposit is £10,000. Reform UK have been a close ally of Fairfield UK over the years, and they're one of the few parties that are actually very close to what Fairfield UK wants and what I want. So with a heavy heart, I've decided to move away from working with the Tories and now work with Reform UK.
OK, well, thanks for announcing your candidacy with us today. Much appreciated. That's Howard Cox from Reform UK, and he is standing for Mayor of London.
Just ask you very quickly about Andrew Bridgen being welcomed into the party yesterday. I know, but it's an interesting news line. Do you welcome him into the party if he's been expelled on his Holocaust views?
Yeah, I understand he's joining Reclaim, isn't he? I think.
Oh, Reclaim, forgive me. Well, there we go. We'll move on. Muddled them up.
I don't know. I really don't have a view over him. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
OK.
There we go.
Waste of time.
Indeed.
Lucky to get Aidan McGivern now with the weather.
Who would waste time, eh?
Aidan, off we go.
Hello, a very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern with the latest GB News forecast from the Met Office. Some sunny spells, especially in the east this morning, but it's going to turn increasingly cloudy from the west, with heavy showers starting once again. Now, those showers are already with us in the west because we've got low pressure feeding an occluded front in. Further east, yesterday's heavy downpours have cleared, but we've got more on the way for the rest of today. So cloudier conditions in the west, slowly making their way eastwards, and then showers just about possible anywhere into the afternoon, but particularly inland, particularly for central and eastern parts of England into central Scotland. These showers, where they do occur, will be very lively. Again, some thunder, some hail in places, and they'll be slow moving. Not everyone will catch a shower. In between the showers, especially around coast, there'll be some sunshine and temperatures will reach the mid to high teens. Drier towards the far north of Scotland, but here there's a lot of low cloud and mist, and that's certainly affecting eastern and northern Scotland during Wednesday night. Elsewhere, some clear spells, but further showery rain will affect Northern Ireland, western Scotland, western parts of England and Wales. Some more persistent rain possible in some spots across Northern Ireland. Temperatures again dipping to around the mid to high single figures, 10 or 11 in one or two spots. But a generally cloudy start to Thursday, particularly towards the west. The cloud and the showery rain will once again move east through the day, and by the afternoon it's a mix of sunny spells and showers. Once again, the showers will be hit and miss. They're not going to affect everyone, and especially around coast there will be some sunshine in between. Temperatures reaching 17, perhaps 18 Celsius, so a slight cooling trend later this week before those temperatures rise again into the weekend, because from Friday, especially in the north, and into Saturday across the whole of the UK, drier and sunnier weather is on the way, and as a result, temperatures will rise.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Donald Trump's presidential bid hangs in the balance as he's ordered to pay his sexual abuse accused of $5 million.
Hello there, very good morning to you. 1 minute past 7 o'clock on this Wednesday morning, the 10th of May. Breakfast on GB News with me and her.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. A jury in New York has decided that Donald Trump sexually abused the writer E. Jean Carroll in the 90s, but rejected the claim that he raped her. Reacting to the verdict, Trump called it part of the biggest witch hunt of all time.
The Home Secretary has warned the House of Lords not to defy the will of the British people as peers prepare to debate the illegal migration bill for the first time. Her comments follow the arrival of a barge set to house asylum seekers in the UK. It's a big barge, as you can see.
The government was right to hand police extra powers, says the Prime Minister, as the backlash continues to the arrest of anti-monarchy protesters. It comes as the Mayor of London tells the Met to conduct a review of coronation policing.
And Sir Keir Starmer has refused to rule out a coalition with the Lib Dems if Labour fail to win a majority at the next general election. Despite major gains in the local elections, pollsters are doubting that the party can secure an overall majority.
And remember, we would love your votes. You've got a few days left to cast one, if you'd like to, for GB News Breakfast in the National Reality TV Awards and the Trick Awards.
What does having an itchy nose mean?
Lying.
Is it lie?
I don't know. I don't know. It just came to my mind that you itch your nose when you lie. I don't know.
Do you?
One, not you specifically.
Well, here I am.
Could just mean you've got an itch.
I'm not lying when I tell you you can vote for us in the best breakfast category in the history of the world section of the television radio industry clubs, and me as the best newsreader. We're not newsreaders, are we?
No,
newscasters.
You're just news presenter.
News presenters.
Yes. Much more than reading
or whatever.
of the
But
news.
anyway, there are these little... Well, how do we do this, Isabel? You log on to the Trick. People say to me, there's the Trick.
So there's have a look at my Instagram
account.
if you haven't checked. I've got all the links up there, but you click on Trick and it's really, really quick and easy. And with the National Reality TV Awards, you do have to register, but it only takes 2 seconds. You put in your name, your date of birth, and then click. You can go through and cast your vote.
But the thing is, this will be worth the effort because...
Well, we get to beat the other channels, which would be delightful.
Very good.
Yeah, we've got some stiff competition as well, especially at the National Reality TV Awards. It's everything. Well, everything.
Who's competition?
Well, all of them, BBC, GMB,
What,
BBC.
they're better than us, are they?
No, I'm saying stiff competition, well-established programmes. You've got Newsnight, you've got News at 6, you've got
Does anybody
Channel
watch
4.
Newsnight anymore?
Pretty much every news programme in there, so we've got to win.
I switched on Newsnight the other night, and I haven't watched it in years. I used to watch it every single night.
Did you?
Every single
past
night
our
before I
bedtime
went
now.
to bed.
Mm.
And now I just go, ugh.
I know. Yeah. Ugh.
You should see what she says when she's not on air. She acts all coy and, you know, fair to everybody.
There's a reason we're friends, put it that way.
Anyway, run the sting.
Right, let's start with this story this morning. A jury has found that Donald Trump sexually abused the magazine writer Eugene Carroll in the 1990s.
Now, the former president was ordered to pay nearly $5 million in damages after the jury found his comments calling the accusations a hoax and a lie harmed her reputation.
After the verdict, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social to deny he even knew Carroll.
I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. The verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time.
Now, we had a very interesting person on the programme earlier this morning, Gloria Allred, who is an attorney. And she shoots from the hip on all of this, and she told us that Trump's decision not to testify does hurt his chances of a better outcome.
Well, it definitely is a victory for Eugene Carroll. And she alleged that she was raped. And even though the jury did not find in this civil lawsuit that she was in fact raped, instead finding that she was sexually abused, they also did find that she was defamed. And they found in favor of her to the extent of $5 million in damages. She was certainly helped by that Access Hollywood tape, which was played for the jury and played for Donald Trump in his deposition testimony under oath before the trial. And he was asked about that by Ms. Carroll's attorney. And he stood his ground on the Access Hollywood tape and didn't try to get out from under it, basically affirmed that he believed that if you're a star, you know, you can grab a woman by her genital area. And of course, he used a pejorative term for that. So he indicated, yes, he's a star. And I don't think that helped him with the jury. And then he didn't testify in front of the jury, which he didn't have to do. But that would have been a complete disaster if he had done that, because he can't help but lie. That's what he does.
Well, joining us now is the American political commentator, Steve Gilt. Good to see you, Steve, or see you in a second. He's coming. Good morning, Steve. Listen, I believe that the sort of MAGA, Make America Great Again wing of the Republican Party makes up about a third of it. They won't be bothered by this finding. But what about the rest of the party? Will this hurt his chances of a nomination or indeed of winning the presidency again?
I don't think it hurts his nomination because, as you mentioned, the Make America Great Again portion of the Republican primary is solidly in his favor. I think the other case against him in New York that is such a persecution witch hunt about documents and recording documents by a partisan DA and a partisan judge in Manhattan, that's already boosted his primary election and his general election numbers. He's gotten his poll numbers gotten a bump. This one, I think, does have a different result, although the result was a bit bizarre, as Allred pointed out. On one hand, the jury found that she was not raped, even though she specifically claimed she was raped, and then tagged Donald Trump with defamation funds and penalized him for that, for saying he didn't rape her. So the jury said she didn't get raped, but we're going to charge Donald Trump for saying she didn't get raped. So it's a little bit of a bizarre result, but I do think it hurts him in the general election because he's already weak with suburban women voters among one of the demographics. And I don't think this helps him there. It may not hurt him horribly, but he was already doing poorly with suburban women, and I don't think this helps him there at all.
Stephen, why is he so strong with his own woman then, his wife? I mean, this would finish a politician in the UK. This would just absolutely finish. There's a number of other things. The famous tape where he described grabbing a woman, that would have finished any politician in the UK. But so he goes on. But I sit here and I just genuinely scratch my head. Why does Melania stay with him?
You know, I think, first of all, she's very loyal, and she knows him better than sort of the media presentation of who he is. It is interesting that Access Hollywood tape was allowed to be played for the jury, and that other women testifying that he had treated them roughly in some cases. That's the kind of stuff that normally doesn't get presented before a jury, and that may give him an avenue for an appeal, because the Access Hollywood tape had nothing to do with this particular case. Also, in this case, you didn't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt like you do in a criminal case. It was a preponderance of the evidence, so you just kind of had to get over that halfway hurdle. But the judge let in testimony and evidence that would not normally be given even in a civil case, much less a criminal case, and that may give him the opportunity for an appeal. But I think that Melania has stuck with him. She knows him. I think she doesn't believe some of the women who come out of the woodwork making these claims, some of whom you could not believe because the facts just weren't there. And in this case, it was a 30-year-old case. The lady couldn't testify as to what year it happened, much less what month. There were no witnesses. There was no evidence. And yet again, in a city of Manhattan, New York City, that 85% of the people there voted against him. Not surprising that a liberal Democrat judge and a liberal Democrat base of jurors found against Donald Trump, again, despite the fact that they rejected her very specific claim that she was raped, and then still found him guilty of defamation for saying the same thing that the jury did. She didn't get raped.
Steve, let me ask you, man to man, does this change your opinion? Does this change your opinion of him? I mean, and speaking for a lot of blokes out there, I mean, does this make you run to the hills? Does this make you distance him? Or does this make you think, well, it's what you'd expect. It's Donald, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not going to scratch my nose when I say this, but I think it does raise, issues of his attitude, his blustery kind of, bull in a china shop sort of approach to things has done damage to him. I think it's one of the reasons that Republicans didn't fare better in the midterm elections. They like his policies. We like his policies. It's his personality that causes trouble. And again, I don't think this helps him. It may not hurt him because among that base of female voters, he was already faring poorly. But it's definitely not going to give him a boost. And I think you're right. Even among men, it makes you be a little squeamish about the behavior that he's exhibited towards women, not just in this case. Although I will say in that Access Hollywood tape, he was saying that his celebrities have a lot more sway, that women throw themselves at him and at celebrities, and that's certainly true. But man, it was such a garish way to present it that I think that certainly carried weight with the jury in this case, that it shows an attitude towards women that none of us should embrace.
I don't know if the Access Hollywood case said that stars threw themselves at him. I mean, the transcript says, I don't even wait. When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the ... You can do anything. I mean, look, I accept it makes you feel squeamish. And I just feel sorry for the wing of the Republican Party, many of whom are very religious people, conservative people, morally do-gooders, who have to contend with this man who's, quite frankly, whether you accept the ruling of the court in this case, just from a number of things that have happened in his past, morally dubious. It's unfortunate, don't you think? It's the best they can come up with.
Yeah, and it harkens back to Bill Clinton when he was president and the behavior that he exhibited, and yet he kept getting reelected despite, aggressive, egregious behavior towards women. And people would ask, would you want him to be your daughter's high school principal? And the answer was, of course, no. And I'd say the same thing about Donald Trump. You wouldn't want him to be your daughter's high school principal, but people were willing to look that aside and reelect Clinton because of the economy, and they may be willing to reelect President Trump again over Biden because of the U.S. economy and the failures of international diplomacy and other failures. Our border is awash with illegal aliens pouring across. It may be enough to elect him because of policy, but man, you're exactly right. The personality stuff is a tough pill to swallow.
Just finally, the comparisons with Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, lots of people saying is he the best the Democrats can come up with. People also talking about the sort of legal stuff surrounding his son and the sort of business details that were found on his laptop. Is that also a disappointment to the Democrats, that's the best that they can come up with?
Well, especially when Joe Biden this week said that his son has done nothing wrong, and yet we have the laptop showing him cavorting with prostitutes, underage prostitutes, using drugs. It's bizarre. that the president would let him travel around the world with him and at the same time say he's done nothing wrong, he's the smartest man I know. It makes you question his judgment on a whole lot of other issues.
Well, those are
again,
allegations we should stress, yeah.
Biden may be the only guy who can beat Trump, and Trump may be the only guy who can beat Biden. I think both parties can probably do better, and that's why a lot of folks would like to see Ron DeSantis as the Republican nominee and would like to see an anybody but Biden nominee on the Democratic side. At this point, I think we're stuck with those two going head-to-head again in America in 2020.
Well, thanks for shining light on that, Steve. Very, very interesting comparisons there. Steve Gill's an American political commentator. We appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much indeed. We go from an American commentator to a British commentator, Leon Emirali, with us now. You know, my friend, I could not ever imagine us sitting discussing a British politician who would be active, who would continue, would be allowed to serve or run for Prime Minister or MP again, who had conducted himself in some sort of sexual awfulness that we're seeing with Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it blows our minds as a UK audience when we look at these types of very serious allegations against Donald Trump. I mean, look at what Boris Johnson was removed from Downing Street for, a couple of parties, you know, against lockdown rules. I mean, when you look at that, that is tame in comparison to what's going on in America, and it's just that big difference between our different political systems. It could happen there, it certainly can't happen here.
Let's talk, shall we, about the illegal migration bill. It's going through the Lords from today. Suella Braverman very concerned about it being watered down. I suppose specifically she'd be worried about her European Court of Human Rights, Section 39. Yes. She wants to be able to overrule those judges. Yeah. Do you think that's likely to happen?
I don't think it's going to be overruled. The Lords aren't necessarily, it's not in their capabilities to overrule legislation sent to them by the Commons, but what they can do is frustrate the process, potentially delay the passing of that legislation for up to a year. Now, given where we are in the political cycle, general election is potentially going to be 12 to 18 months away, so the Conservatives want to get this legislation in play as soon as possible so they can point to what they've done, what they've implemented, and say, actually, we're getting the job done on immigration, trust us, and we'll continue the job.
Yesterday we had news that the King and Boris Johnson had fallen out over the Rwanda proposals, and today the papers are talking about the Archbishop of Canterbury in the Lords objecting to this bill. Does that sort of cast shadow over the Home Secretary's bill, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, they look at the King potentially, so we hear, being opposed to that Rwanda deal. We hear the Archbishop of Canterbury being opposed to this type of crackdown on illegal migration. And I think for the government, it puts them in a sticky position because ultimately they, yes, potentially can argue they've got the mandate of the British people. They are the ones that have been elected to do this. And those that are coming out in opposition to it aren't elected. Yes, they're influential. Yes, they're important figureheads, but they aren't the people that the voters have entrusted to deliver these types of policies. So I think the government can come back quite strongly on that. But ultimately, it is a tricky situation for them to be in when you've got these powerful voices coming against you.
Keir Starmer won't say it, but would you say it that you would see the Lib Dems and Labour holding hands and walking down the aisle?
Yeah, I think it's a given. I mean, look at those numbers with the Labour Party. OK, I do say local elections are about who collects your bins. National elections are about who controls nuclear weapons. So there is a difference in who you're voting for. But when we look at the trajectory, we look at the polls, Labour can't get over the line with a simple majority. It looks very, very difficult for them to do so. So the Lib Dems seem like the natural bedfellows, but Keir Starmer very reluctant to say, yes, we'll entertain the idea of a coalition, because going into coalition with the Lib Dems could mean the watering down or even the end of Brexit. It could mean a change to the way we vote in this country, proportional representation being introduced. So some big, fundamental constitutional issues could be raised if that coalition goes ahead.
Right. Leon, thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. Appreciate your time this morning. 17 minutes past 7. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening news-wise.
Another phone hacking trial involving the Duke of Sussex is beginning today. Prince Harry's suing Mirror Group newspapers over what he's calling unlawful information gathering. The tabloids contesting the claims, arguing that some have been brought too late.
The first baby with DNA from 3 people has been born following a special IVF procedure here in the UK. The treatment aims to prevent the passing of defective genes from mothers by giving the baby DNA from its mother, father, and another female donor.
Parts of England have been hit by hailstorms, heavy rain and thunder, with yellow weather warnings in place until 10 p.m. this evening. The Met Office says heavy showers with the risk of thunder and hail will persist over the next 2 days. Ms. Roswell.
You see, if I was an actor, right? Could I play the part of a gay man? Is that
Yes,
acceptable?
you should be able to if you are an actor. But the question, I suppose, is, should you, not could you?
Well, we have a man coming in who will argue against straight people playing gay roles. Your views? Next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely
Right.
stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship,
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
and no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is-
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in, however that might be on the airwaves, whether you're listening on the radio or watching us on TV. The time is 7:23. Still to come.
We're just grateful, however you're doing it. We're very grateful. Does that mean we're talking about bisexuality next? Wait, does that mean if you listen on radio and
you're
TV,
by...
you're sort of by frequency?
Yeah. I don't know what the term is.
We're all for it. We're all for it. Now, meat, you're told be a vegan, don't eat meat, and it'll get rid of a lot of ills in your life and a lot of conditions. Now, today, we're hearing that eating meat can help you fight back against cancer.
Yes, at 7:45, we'll speak to a man whose own cancer stopped growing since giving up his vegetarianism alongside his medical treatment.
Then, after 8 o'clock, we're speaking to Mr. Nigel Farage, GB News presenter. That's not him, that's Donald Trump.
That's both of them.
There's wee Nigel leading Big Donald into that big interview they had last week. So they're talking about the verdict on Suella Braverman's warning to the House of Lords, which he's issued over the illegal migration bill.
Indeed. So let us know your views this morning. Lots of them have been coming in. We're not going to look at them right now, even though there's loads, because we've got a really good debate, but we'll find a space for them in a minute.
Now, a British actor known for his role in a programme called Heartland, which I've no idea what it is. You have no idea what it is either. No idea what channel it's on.
Netflix. I know that.
It's on Netflix.
1 point.
Okay. So, well, this guy has sparked a debate after saying a gay guy should play a gay guy.
Right. Well, Aidan Moreno said straight actors should step aside and let the LGBT plus community represent themselves. But is he right?
Well, co-host of the Bisexual Brunch, Lewis Oakley, joins us in the studio. And he thinks it's fine. It's OK for straight actors to play gay characters. Meanwhile, there's Benjamin Button with his glasses steaming up. And he says only gay actors should take on gay roles. But Benjamin, the thing is, they're actors. They act a role. Tell us why you're so pro a gay guy playing a gay guy.
Because I think it would be very naive to think that the only part of why a person gets a role is because of their ability to act. We know that how much they appeal in terms of the commercial value, how attractive they are, how much the audience is familiar with their name. Lots of things play a role in how they get roles. And the truth is that when it comes to gay stories being told, whether they're in films, dramas, that overwhelmingly, until very recently, they were played by heterosexual actors. And I think you have to ask yourself, why was that? It's because they didn't think that a gay star, a gay actor, would be commercially viable for a lot of these shows. And so I think that when you're telling stories of LGBT people's lives, gay, bisexual, transgender, etc., that they should be able to tell their own stories because it brings an authenticity and they often get fewer opportunities in other areas.
Benjamin, does that not mean you're closing off the opportunity for them to play any straight roles in reverse?
No, not really, because the truth is that, there's no shortage of things that straight actors get, right? But basically, I'm saying that when it comes to telling stories about a niche experience of life, okay? So, it's a lot easier to know what it's like to be heterosexual, to be in the majority, because that is what most of our society is like. But when you have a niche experience of the world, whether that's being black or disabled or gay, well, that's a lot better told by someone who understands that. And I think the truth is that if you look at TV shows like It's a Sin about the HIV/AIDS epidemic, those gay actors brought a power to that people who hadn't lived through it simply couldn't have.
So, Lewis, why is Benjamin talking rubbish?
I just think over the years I have seen so many performances by straight actors that have played gay characters that have been really moving, that have really changed the dial, and I think really helped destigmatize it a lot. I think actually there is something to be said for when a straight actor puts themselves on the line, as it would have been seen once upon a time, and plays a gay or LGBT role, that actually it brings a lot of attention to it. And I've actually always really enjoyed sort of the PR in the run-up to those kind of films, where the actors kind of talk about what they learn about the LGBT experience as they kind of did the discovery for the role and what they brought to it. I think it's great to be able to have LGBT actors play LGBT roles, but I don't think it's essential. And I think we need to be really careful, because it was not so long ago an agent would have said to their actor, don't do this. This will be bad for you, you'll be stigmatized. And now, in 2023, we're kind of saying to them, again, don't do it, because, there will be a backlash from people that think that you shouldn't be having these roles, that you're stealing them. So we're going to be back in that situation.
But is there not an argument, Lewis, that, you could actually say there was a need for it when fewer people were coming out, and now it is much more socially acceptable to be gay, and therefore there's no need for someone to act that role in the same way you wouldn't need a man to act as a woman like you used to in the days of Shakespeare?
Well, I think a couple of points on that. Number one is if there is an audition process, and if the argument is, well, an LGBT person is going to bring something uniquely to the role, then they'll get the role. If, there's a straight actor that brings something different that the director likes, then maybe that's it. And I think also it's about saying that, being gay or bisexual or LGBT is not the most defining person. What if the role is for someone that happens to be gay, but they work in a law firm and that's what the focus of the story is? Is it then better to have someone that had a law degree before they went into acting? It's being LGBT for some characters is not going to be the overarching thing that defines them.
Do you think that's fair, Benjamin, that perhaps it's actually minimising the role to just being about sexual orientation?
I mean, look, if the role is being behind the bar in the Rover's Return and the person's sexuality makes basically no reference, but they are theoretically a gay character, sure, it doesn't matter. But what I'm talking about is these stories of people's lives that they can do a better job of. So take, for example, a programme that aired on the BBC from America called Pose. It was about black transgender people in the 1980s that produced the kind of music people like RuPaul and Madonna's that culture came out of it. And they made a brilliant drama about it. And the actors who played that were black trans people, some of whom remembered that period of time. And it brought a power to that very sensitive story and a depth to it that just wouldn't have happened otherwise. And if it isn't the case that you shouldn't be a part of the group that you're trying to represent, that it doesn't bring an authenticity, you wouldn't have a white bloke in Nelson Mandela. And actually, I think most people now would recognise someone sort of pretending to be in a wheelchair is a bit awkward as well. I think this is progress.
What do you mean you wouldn't get a white guy playing Nelson Mandela? You get lots of black people playing white characters, and that seems to be OK. But a black actress playing Queen Elizabeth I. Anything goes.
I think most people would find it comical, if not insulting, to see Eamonn Holmes playing the role of Nelson Mandela, right? I don't think that's one job you're going to get.
You don't find that actress, that black actress who played Elizabeth I, insulting?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen that particular programme, so I don't know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, the concept that a black actress would play a white historical character, and you're supposed to believe that.
Well, hang on. I mean, there's been some stuff like the Netflix drama where people thought that there weren't black people around in the aristocracy and in those parts of Britain at the time, and there were. So I think there's been some historical rewriting on some of those controversies where people saw black people in historical dramas.
But I mean, there's this, is it called being called colourblind and whatever. So this goes on all the time. I mean, this is nonsense. I watched Kenneth Branagh's film Belfast, which had Indian corner shop owners and black school teachers and whatever. Believe me, the only black people you saw in Belfast in 1969 was either soldier or doctor, and that was it. But, that was retro casting and it was being colourblind, and that's the way it is. So I find it quite strange that when all these things happen and they're accepted, and you seem to accept that it's not good to have a white person play Nelson Mandela, that you say only a gay guy can play a gay guy.
But let me say this to you, OK? That there have obviously been heterosexual actors who have done good portrayals of gay stories.
I think of Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club. Absolutely exquisite, in my opinion.
Yeah, but let me make this point. Brokeback Mountain, a film that, as a young teenage gay person, had a huge effect on me, and they were heterosexual actors, and they did a good job. There'd be no denying it. But you have to ask yourself, why is it that basically all of those major Hollywood gay stories, basically literally every single one until very recently, went to heterosexual actors? Is that not a problem that no gay people got to tell those stories?
Okay,
and the reason that it would only be heterosexual, sorry, quickly, is because they wouldn't think a gay actor would sell. They wouldn't think it'd be commercial, and we have to break that down.
Okay, Lewis, do you agree with that?
Well, I think that one day we will get there where a gay actor will play a gay role and he'll get the Oscar. You know, that's something to look forward to one day.
The word an actor is an actor, basically.
But he is an actor, and I think what we have to do here, I think there's 2 points, right? One is that we don't lose the public consensus on this, and the public consensus is it's acting silly. You know, anyone should be able to play a role, and then you do get into that argument of, well, should a gay guy be able to play a straight role? And it's very hard to defend against that without coming across hypocritical. But I also think we'll just, by siphoning off and saying, no, only certain people can play these roles, we'll just lose some talent there. There's no need for it.
Let's put it to a vote as we end this. Is it OK for straight actors to play gay? I say yes. Isabel?
Yes.
Yes.
And Benjamin?
No.
3-1, you're beaten. 3-1. 3-1. Thanks for taking part anyway. Very good to talk to both of you. Thank you very much indeed.
We had a fascinating interview with Simon Callow, I think, last year, highly critically acclaimed, prominent Hollywood gay actor, and he said he didn't think that roles should be diminished down to somebody's sexuality. It should be based on their ability to act.
Wonderful voice
tell
Simon
stories.
Callow has. Wonderful voice. Very, very good.
Because most actors are performing a role that they've never necessarily lived through themselves.
Before.
Exactly. Right, so that's our thoughts. Let us know yours.
Playing the gladiator, you know, Russell Crowe.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'd have been good in that role.
I could see you
But I
doing
wasn't a gladiator, so maybe I wouldn't be allowed to play.
No.
Coming up to 25 to 8, please do stay with us after the break. What are we discussing?
Well, this is a huge story. Britain's obesity crisis. Apparently 7,000 people are dying every year because of it. We'll be discussing it with David Mellor and Emma Burnell next in the papers.
Diabetes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know,
All
Kate
sorts of
Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2 minutes now before 8 o'clock. Time to go through the papers. Joining us, David Mellor and also Emma Burnell. Very nice to see you both. And David, we want to talk financial matters, and Britain's economic prospects were underestimated, says the Telegraph.
Yes. Unfortunately, the Telegraph only says so online, which is why I have to fiddle around with my mobile. It's not because I'm taking saucy texts from anybody, but the not that anyone who would send a saucy text watches GB News. I'm sorry to break that to you, but that's the fact of it. But it's quite interesting, actually. It is interesting. The pound is now forecast to rise sharply against the dollar after one of the City's most gloomy analysts, which happened to come from Citibank, admitted it was wrong to underestimate Britain's economic prospects. And with an honesty very commendable and not often to be found in politics, the head of European foreign exchange strategy at Citi said its predictions of a material correction, put my false teeth back in, a material correction in house prices and a collapse in consumption had not come to pass. And this is what he said. The notes to clients, he said, quotes, "We have been wrong, plain and simple."
Was it not a forecast they made in the wake of the disastrous kamikaze budget last September?
Yes.
When everybody was in a bit of a sort of, free fall and nobody really knew what was going to happen.
Including, indeed, those who created it.
Why they might have got it wrong. But, I mean, is that the story here, that
So what does it
basically
mean?
most forecasts about the economy are wrong?
What does it mean?
the British
if the
economy
pound is to rise, is that good
to
for us?
130.
Huh?
It's 126 at the moment. I think it'll go 130.
Right, so that means if we go abroad, we can buy more.
Well, that would be one of the hopeful things, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
There we go.
And of course, also, it should have an impact on interest rates. But the point is, talking down the British economy has been a habit of people, really, in all the years I've been interested in politics. But the British economy and the British people, despite some of their awful political leaders, are stronger than we ever give them credit for. And there is more resilience in the British economy. The British economy is more effective than a lot of its critics are minded to say.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing. I'm just remembering in the immediate aftermath of that mini budget, wasn't it parity between the dollar and the pound?
Yes, that's right.
And nobody really knew how resilient the pound was going to be.
Yeah.
No, so you could understand why their forecasts would be terrible, because we were all very, very worried.
Well, and
also
all
that we all became experts in gilts for a week or two.
Most of the things in that budget were unravelled, so things have changed, therefore forecasts changed, and that's right. They were wrong, but they were wrong because they didn't see that being unravelled. At the time, no one did. Liz Truss was not saying, actually, I'll step down, actually, I'll turn this all around. I mean, $1.30 is still not anything like the peak strength that the pound's been at. I mean, I remember going to New York in 2014 and we were nearly $2 to the pound. Yeah. You could go on a great shopping trip, which I very much did. So it's not...
No,
I think that we need to put this into context, that it's not as strong as it has been, as it could be. The problem... I mean, forecasters have a difficult job. Everyone who says this is what's going to happen has a difficult job. I know, because I am quite often asked what will be the outcome of the next election, for example. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Here's where I think we stand at the moment. And based on that, this is what I think will happen. But nobody's investing their money based on what I'm saying. And this is the problem with economic forecasts, is it will shift where investment goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, Emma, are you reading, this is the front page of the Daily Express you want to talk about, and the fastest growing health emergency in this country is diabetes.
Yeah, now let's be clear, this is type 2 diabetes. So there are two types of diabetes, one of which is genetic and children, type 1 diabetes, it's not caused by lifestyle concerns. Type 2 diabetes is largely driven by lifestyle concerns, not least obesity, and there's been a massive rise in this over the last few years.
Up 13%,
Up 13%.
on pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, exactly, which means, I mean, there are obvious reasons. There were 2 years where exercising was considerably harder. And comfort eating was an obvious thing to do. We all did it. And I think that, in the same way that alcohol consumption went up during the pandemic, so did, food takeaways. The only people still working with the delivery drivers. Making all that gorgeous sourdough bread and the banana bread and all the cakes. So I think that this may be a post-pandemic blip, but it is something that we do need to look at. We do need to be... I mean, I'm conscious that I'm talking about obesity. I'm no longer morbidly obese, which I once was, but I've got exactly 2 stone, 3.5 pounds to lose before I hit my target weight. So I'm nowhere near a healthy weight at the moment.
But you're trying.
I'm doing my best, absolutely.
You're not a type 2 diabetic.
I'm not a type 2 diabetic.
Because that's the glory of it, that you can reverse it.
You can reverse it. In fact, my dad's done so, which I'm so proud of him in doing so.
How did he do it?
He changed his lifestyle. I mean, my mum transferred all of the lifelong diet energy that she's had onto my dad and the dog, the poor dog. Gets no food.
Oh, no.
But so they've changed their lifestyle. They drink less than they used to. They eat more sensible. Yeah, the dog drinks a lot less than they used to. But it's about making small lifestyle shifts. Everything in moderation is my sort of humble opinion, the way to go. Certainly, I've found that supported through the Slimming World plan that I use, which means that if I want to have a bit of chocolate, I just have to balance it with other things.
It's not sustainable.
Exactly. It's unsustainable to live completely like a monk.
Okay.
But it is a worrying factor when we're looking at an NHS that is in crisis anyway. If the things that are likely to drive much more NHS usage are going up at the same time as we're already seeing waiting lists rise, that is a worry.
Yeah, well said.
OK, let's say it was the victory parade in Moscow yesterday in Red Square. And, David, you've taken an article from The Telegraph, a column by Hamish de Bretton Gordon, talking about how Russia is actually suffering worse than anyone thinks.
Yes, I mean, you wonder what... I mean, I worry, actually, about Putin, because you think, how could he have credibly stood there while one single 1943 tank went through... I mean, but behind all of that, there is a recognition that the Russians... I mean, they can still push a button and destroy all of us, so we don't want to get too complacent about Russia. But the reality is, in terms of the quality of their soldiers, they're not high caliber. And to be fair to what has happened basically they haven't managed to adapt to modern warfare, which is probably good from our point of view. But it means their losses are unsustainable, except they go to a group like, and indeed, it's all over the Times, the Wagner group, where they get people out of prison and send them to the front line, murderers and so on. So it's fascinating. Where's it all going to end? I tell you, I'm not at all sure.
On indefinitely.
I mean, even the Wagner group are upset with Putin at the moment.
Right, so this is the mercenary group that the Russian government commissioned.
Yeah, the Russian government commissioned the Wagner group. The UK government are saying they're going to prescribe them as a terrorist organisation, quite rightly.
I'm surprised they haven't done that already.
Indeed, absolutely. But even there are tensions between the Wagner group and the Russian Ministry of Defence, where there was a video where the head of the Wagner group, with dead bodies behind him, was saying, you are killing us, you're not sending enough ammunition. So even with these mercenary groups, there is tensions spilling out into public, which you can imagine that given how controlled the Russian narrative is, if these are spilling out into public, what on earth is happening behind the scenes?
And at what point is he going to move against Putin? I mean, Putin looks dreadful now. I mean, it's impossible not to believe he's ill.
Yeah.
The worry is, of course, if he's going, he'll want to take some of the rest of us with him, if not quite a lot of the rest.
Guys, got to cut across you there. Thank you both very much indeed. See you again just after 8:30.
Right, with the time at 7:47, these are today's top stories. And a US jury has found Donald Trump sexually abused the magazine writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s and then defamed her by branding her a liar. He must now pay nearly £4 million in damages to the columnist. Trump has called the verdict a disgrace, saying he will appeal.
The Archbishop of Canterbury will condemn the government's illegal migration bill in Parliament later today. The legislation aims to detain and promptly remove people who arrive in the UK in small boats, either to their home country or a third country like Rwanda.
Robert De Niro has announced the birth of his 7th child. He is 79 years old, and the Oscar winner shared the news during an interview with ET Canada.
Parts of England have been hit by hailstorms, heavy rain and thunder with yellow weather warnings in place until 10 o'clock tonight. The Met Office says heavy showers with the risk of thunder and hail will persist over the next 2 days.
Now, we've all heard the warnings over the years, haven't we, that processed meat or red meat can all cause cancer. Well, up next, we'll be speaking to Nick Wheeler. He was a vegetarian for 40 years, but after being diagnosed with bowel cancer in 2021, his nutritionist actually told him to add meat back into his diet to help him fight the disease whilst he was getting his medical treatment.
Well, that's interesting advice. But Nick has since given up vegetarianism. And guess what? His cancer has stopped growing. It's just stopped. Nick and his nutritionist, Rhys, join us now. Very good to see you both.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Well, I'm sure it is good to see you. I'm sure you're glad. What a story. You see, I would have thought, I read all these articles and whatever, and it says, oh, you have too much meat, it lies in your gut, it's full of chemicals, everything's bad. Did it come as a surprise to you because you thought you were doing everything right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When I first met Rhys, I had to sort of explain my life, which was full of quite a lot of stress in one way or another. But then I thought, as a saving grace, I said to him, but look, I haven't eaten meat for 40 years, thinking he would go, oh, well done,
Yes,
you.
yeah.
And he put his head in his hands and started crying, I think, and said, go out there and buy some steak. You've got to get meat.
Why did you say that?
A couple of reasons, really, but the biggest one is there's a lot of minerals that you don't get when you don't eat meat. Things like zinc, especially, B vitamins, iron, are really tricky to get in vegetables.
It's very interesting. I'm on zinc supplements now.
Okay.
Because it's non-existent in my body.
Yes, yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You only really get it from oysters and red meat. So if you're
it's about your normal
if you're lacking those, then you won't get it.
But, I mean, we haven't got any doctors represented here, and we should stress that whilst you did go back onto a meat-eating diet, you were also undergoing medical treatment from the best cancer hospital in the country.
Absolutely.
So you can't attribute all of this to changing your diet, can you?
No, I don't attribute any of it to changing my diet. The doctors have stopped the cancer with the chemotherapy so far. And but what the work with Rhys is doing is reducing the effect of the chemotherapy, which is a very strong poisonous drug at the end of the day, to put into your body every fortnight. And by changing my diet and working in a gym to build some muscle, even at my age, I nearly said our age, but that would be unfair.
What are you trying?
At my age, 69 now.
69. Oh, you've a good few years on me. You're 6 ahead of me. You're 6 ahead of me. But you look honestly fit and well, and you're tanned, and you're healthy, and you've got obviously within you obviously exude this feeling of, I think I may have this beaten.
Well, I only say that privately, if you like, because who knows? And certainly, I think
you look well.
The doctors I work with would never say that. You've always got to work to keep up and work to keep your strength up, so that your own system can cope with everything that's going on. And it's just about doing everything you can to make it as good as you can.
And Rhys, what would be the difference between actually just taking the supplements whilst you're going through chemo and actually eating the meat? I mean, as a vegetarian, presumably, he could have, and maybe you did in the past, used to take some zinc supplements.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's very difficult to know just how much to take, especially with certain minerals. When you're looking at zinc, all minerals work in pairs. So zinc and copper, potassium and sodium, If you just take one of those minerals, you can end up depleting some of the others, especially things like zinc. So if your zinc is too high, you end up depleting copper, which you need for white blood cells. So that can cause other problems. It's like, how much do you actually take? And if you get it from a food source, you're almost impossible to go over the levels that your body would need, because it would get rid of all the stuff it doesn't.
I'm just interested to know what your philosophy is, by and large, Rhys. You're a gut health nutritionist and a personal trainer. What are you saying to people who would be vegetarian or vegan?
I think you're going to be missing out on a lot of minerals, and I think temporarily people can feel fine because you have a store of a lot of minerals inside your body, but the longer you go without those minerals, the more problems you start to run into. So people can feel great initially, and that's generally because they're eating more vegetables, not because they're not eating as much meat. So when people switch from a normal meat-eating diet to eating more vegetables, because they don't have the meat, they have to eat more veggies, which generally makes you feel better. But that lack of meat generally comes back to bite you a little bit later on, and you start to feel worse, you start to feel lower in minerals, and it's not an obvious thing that you relate to. Oh, I'm a vegetarian, so I feel a lot more tired, my skin's not as dark, and this is one of the things that Nick has seen in improvement. You get tanned, and you stay tanned longer, and that's a good sign of health. So if you're somebody who gets sun exposure and you get burnt a lot, that's a bit of a problem, or you get tanned and then you lose it very quickly. Those are not great signs of health, and a lot of it is down to your mineral status.
Wow, gosh, that's so interesting. Do you know, this is a reminder once again that what happens in the kitchen doesn't just affect your physique, how you look, but actually your health and therefore your well-being. And it's what we put in our mouths.
Poison or a medicine.
Is absolutely the most important thing we do every single day.
Well, you do it so many times, right? And I always tell Nick, as soon as you're sick, every mouthful makes a difference.
Gosh.
Well, Nick, continue to be well.
Thank you.
Continue to do what you're doing. And Rhys, very interesting, just raising that subject, getting people to think about what they eat. And maybe you'll get in touch with us and see if you would support what Rhys is saying, or you find differently. Let us know.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you
luck with the
very
rest
much
of your treatment,
indeed.
Nick. Thank you, and thank you, Rhys. Right, stay with us. We'll be asking in just a moment, after he was found liable for sexual abuse, is Donald Trump's 2024 presidential bid over already?
But first, let's go to Aidan McGivern and your weather forecast.
Hello, a very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern with the latest GB News forecast from the Met Office. Some sunny spells, especially in the east this morning, but it's going to turn increasingly cloudy from the west, with heavy showers starting once again. Now, those showers are already with us in the west because we've got low pressure feeding an occluded front in. Further east, yesterday's heavy downpours have cleared, but we've got more on the way for the rest of today. So cloudier conditions in the west, slowly making their way eastwards, and then showers just about possible anywhere into the afternoon, but particularly inland, particularly for central and eastern parts of England into central Scotland. These showers, where they do occur, will be very lively. Again, some thunder, some hail in places, and they'll be slow moving. Not everyone will catch a shower. In between the showers, especially around coast, there'll be some sunshine and temperatures will reach the mid to high teens. Drier towards the far north of Scotland, but here there's a lot of low cloud and mist, and that's certainly affecting eastern and northern Scotland during Wednesday night. Elsewhere, some clear spells, but further showery rain will affect Northern Ireland, western Scotland, western parts of England and Wales. Some more persistent rain possible in some spots across Northern Ireland. Temperatures, again, dipping to around the mid to high single figures, 10 or 11 in one or two spots. But a generally cloudy start to Thursday, particularly towards the west. The cloud and the showery rain will once again move east through the day, and by the afternoon, it's a mix of sunny spells and showers. Once again, the showers will be hit and miss. They're not going to affect everyone. And especially around coast, there will be some sunshine in between. Temperatures reaching 17, perhaps 18 Celsius, so a slight cooling trend later this week before those temperatures rise again into the weekend, because from Friday, especially in the north, and into Saturday across the whole of the UK, drier and sunnier weather is on the way, and as a result, temperatures will rise.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it. Like, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Donald Trump's presidential bid hangs in the balance as he's ordered to pay his sexual abuse victim $5 million.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. It's 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 10th of May. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Very nice to have you on board, wherever you're watching or listening from, leading the news on this Wednesday morning.
A jury in New York has decided that Donald Trump sexually abused the writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s, but rejected the claim that he raped her. Reacting to the verdict, Trump called it part of the biggest witch hunt of all time.
The Home Secretary has warned the House of Lords not to defy the will of the British people as peers prepare to debate the illegal migration bill for the first time. Her comments follow the arrival of a barge set to house asylum seekers in the UK.
The government was right to hand police extra powers, says the Prime Minister, as the backlash continues to the arrest of anti-monarchy protesters. It comes as the Mayor of London tells the Met to conduct a review of coronation policing.
And Sir Keir Starmer has refused to rule out a coalition with the Lib Dems if Labour fail to win a majority at the next election. Despite major gains in the local elections, pollsters are in doubt the party can secure an overall majority. And you have been very, very good talking about this. This has got a lot of you going. And John says last year's net migration to this country was over 500,000. Now it's going to be over 650,000 this year. The country cannot sustain this amount of migration, so it doesn't matter how much money you pump into the NHS, education or housing. We're not going to be able to repair our public services with this amount of people coming in constantly to settle.
And Jeff says, why don't the government use one of these barges for to house army veterans who are having a hard time after years of service?
On the question that Keir Starmer won't answer, a coalition with the Lib Dems, a Lib Lab coalition would be a disaster, says Robert. They will follow every woke diktat going. Net zero would be brought forward, Brexiteers would be betrayed, and they take us back under EU rule. Our borders would be thrown wide open. So please do let us know your views, whether you agree with that or whether you don't agree with that. John says, as much as I'm annoyed with the Tories getting rid of Boris, if Labour ends up having to do a coalition deal with the Lib Dems, you can bet your life it will be to reverse Brexit and start freedom of movement of people again. So a lot of you as to your theories as to why Keir Starmer is not talking about a pact with the Lib Dems. Yeah. Oh, and incidentally, something I nearly forgot.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you go for it. You read that bit and then I'll read the bit about you. Otherwise, you have to read about you.
And that
it's always a bit awkward.
Embarrassing,
yeah.
You know. Listen, we've got, if you go to our Instagram accounts or Twitter accounts, and my Instagram is @Eamonn Holmes and Isabel is...
Isabel Webster TV.
And Twitter is @Eamonn Holmes again. That's easy enough. And you
@Isabel Webster _.
Right. And if you can go there, you can find out how you can vote for this very breakfast show in the National Reality TV Awards.
First time the channel's got a nomination in the NRTA, so we're pleased about that. That's on the 31st of July.
Yeah.
And there's a whole host of nominations in the Trick Awards. Best multi-channel news programme, which is for us and for Stephen and Ellie. Stephen has also been nominated for Best Presenter, as have you. And you, of course, are, the title holder.
Well, yeah.
So we need your votes. It is a public vote.
Public vote, and that's why it's so important. And they close the vote. They close the voting on Friday. Yeah. So I think if you could lend us your vote, look it up on the Instagram or Twitter accounts, that would be great.
So many people have been getting in touch saying they've been voting, sending me screenshots saying they've cast their vote. I've had them from Canada, from Australia, all different parts from Ireland.
What? You got people internationally wanting to vote for us?
Yeah. So keep it up. Gosh. Thank you so much. We are very grateful. We do appreciate it.
So they're going to close the doors on Friday on this one. So go and tell your neighbours, tell your relations, tell
spread the word.
Anybody, people you work with. Tell anybody, just say, this wee station needs you.
So our top story this morning is that a jury has found Donald Trump sexually abused the magazine writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s.
The former president was ordered to pay $5 million in damages after the jury found his comments calling the accusations a hoax and a lie harmed her reputation.
Well, after the verdict, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social to deny he even knew Carroll.
I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. The verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time.
Now, earlier we had an attorney from the USA called Gloria Allred on the programme.
Yes, she told us that Trump's decision not to testify has hurt his chances of a better outcome.
Well, it definitely is a victory for E. Jean Carroll, and she alleged that she was raped. And even though the jury did not find in this civil lawsuit that she was in fact raped, instead finding that she was sexually abused, they also did find that she was defamed, and they found in favor of her to the extent of $5 million in damages. She was certainly helped by that Access Hollywood tape, which was played for the jury and played for Donald Trump in his deposition testimony under oath before the trial. And he was asked about that by Ms. Carroll's attorney. And he stood his ground on the Access Hollywood tape and didn't try to get out from under it. Basically affirmed that he believed that if you're a star, you can grab a woman by her genital area. And of course, he used a pejorative term for that. So he indicated, yes, he's a star. And I don't think that helped him with the jury. And then he didn't testify in front of the jury, which he didn't have to do. But that would have been a complete disaster if he had done that, because he can't help but lie. That's what he does.
Attorney Gloria Allred there. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary has warned the House of Lords not to defy the will of the British people, as those peers will debate the illegal migration bill for the first time today.
Yes, her comments written in the Telegraph follow the arrival of a barge set to house hundreds of asylum seekers who've entered the UK. Let's speak to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who joins us this morning. Look, I suppose this is a warning shot then from the Home Secretary to peers in the Lords, amongst whom, of course, is the Archbishop of Canterbury, pictured on the front of the I newspaper. Yesterday it was the King, today it's the Archbishop of Canterbury, both of them with problems with this government's immigration bill.
Yeah, indeed, though we must make clear that the King's apparent when he was the Prince of Wales was with a previous migration bill introduced by the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. But you're right, there is clearly disquiet within Parliament, particularly in the House of Lords, about this bill. We know that the opposition parties think it is immoral. They do not think it's going to solve the problem of the small boats crisis in the English Channel, and they think that it does criminalise people who are trying to seek refuge in this country. However, what should be said is that the government, frankly, do believe that this is necessary, and as you say, they are going to have a barge now off Weymouth, much opposed though by the local Conservative MP and indeed by the council, that could house up to 500 migrants on it. Now, they will still be able to go off that barge every day. They are free to move around. They are not prisoners. But this is the government's attempt to try and tackle those growing numbers of asylum seekers in this country and migrants who need accommodation. The effort of this bill in Parliament is to try and deter people from coming here in the first place. As you say, it's going to be in the House of Lords. I expect there's going to be an awful lot of opportunity for opposition to the bill. But in the end, actually, it's probably an argument the government's not afraid of, because they think they've got public opinion on their sides.
You know, they'll argue, in fact, as I said, the Home Secretary has written in this opinion piece in the Telegraph, that they have a mandate for this, reminding the Lords of that. They point to the fact that taxpayers are having to foot these extraordinary bills, and also that it diminishes the opportunities for genuine asylum seekers who the country have a proud tradition of helping. But what will be the specific objections, do you think, that the peers will pick holes in and possibly make amendments to?
Well, I think to a large degree it's going to be based on this idea of the backlog that we're currently seeing in terms of asylum applications. We know that they are running at record highs. Clearly also they think that this fundamentally criminalises migrants who've come here. Now, the government would say that there are routes, there are means for people to seek access to the UK, to seek asylum illegally, though many people, even within the Conservative Party, recognise there are not many of them. They're applicable to people from Afghanistan, from places like Hong Kong and Ukraine, but not, for example, if you're coming from Sudan and indeed from other war-torn parts of the world. So they clearly feel that there should be more routes, more accessible routes for people to arrive here in the UK. But as I say, in the end, this is a kind of tussle that's going to go back and forth. I think the big question for the Prime Minister is, even if this bill is passed, and in the end I think it is, because the Commons will pass it, is will it genuinely act as a deterrent? Will it stop people from crossing the English Channel to arrive into the UK? Will it, frankly, as Rishi Sunak claims it will do, stop the small boats? Because in the end, if it doesn't, well, he could be in big trouble at the next general election.
OK, Darren, thanks very much.
See that Egypt with the the placard behind Darren? I mean, again, I don't care what you're protesting about or who you're supporting and who you're not, but not on our patch. Now, me, I think I'd have turned around and taken his placard off him and broken it up or something. I just think, butt out, none of your business to be standing there.
He's ruining our shot, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't care what he's protesting about. It's
No,
just
me
like,
neither.
this is where these new police powers should be brought in.
Oh, you think that's a criminal offence?
Yeah, I do. I think he should be locked up, put away somewhere.
Who's going to pay for him in prison?
Guantanamo Bay. You would send him there.
Costs more than Eton student to prison somebody.
It would be worth it, but think of the satisfaction. Whereas whoever he is, there's obviously nothing going on in his life. So he's another Egypt that wakes up in the morning. What am I going to do? I'm going to make
Just make a space for them to go and do it somewhere else.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in front of the TV cameras and shake it all about.
It is a problem.
Well, anyway, there you go. Just my view.
Let's turn our attention to yet another phone hacking trial involving the Duke of Sussex beginning today. Yes,
But
they're
he's not in the
sandwiching the
country
coronation.
today.
No, but he is due to attend, I believe, next month. Yeah.
Yo-yo back and forth. Make up your mind,
Well,
Harry.
it's not good for the planet.
No.
Anyway.
He's suing Mirror Group newspapers over what he's calling unlawful information gathering. Let's go to Paul Hawkins, who's at the High Court for us this morning, and he will tell us more. Paul, good morning to you.
Morning, Eamonn. Yeah, he is due to appear at this trial that's starting today. It's going to last for 6 to 7 weeks, and when he does appear, that will be a box office moment because he'll become the first senior royal to appear in a courtroom to give evidence since the 19th century. But essentially, at the heart of this, his case is being heard alongside a number of other celebrities, the former footballer Ian Wright, for example, the singer Cheryl Cole, lawyers representing the estate of the late, great George Michael, and their case centres around allegations of obtaining information illegally to write stories about them from the mid-90s up till 2011. Now, we should add that they're going to their lawyers are going to produce evidence obtained by some whistleblowers. There will be receipts from private investigators, phone records, etc. Now, Mirror Group, who own the Daily Mirror, the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday People, they have made a limited admission in the past that there was some phone hacking at their group, that some stories were written, that information may have been obtained illegally, and they've had to pay out hundreds of thousands of pounds in compensation. But in terms of these claims, they're saying that in some of the claimants' cases, they've been brought too late. In cases such as Prince Harry's, there was no illegal obtaining of information. But at the heart of this will be what executives at the paper and editors knew. And the editor of the Daily Mirror between 1995 and 2004 was Piers Morgan, so expect to hear his name mentioned a lot over the next 6 to 7 weeks.
OK, Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Hello, Dean. Dean's in Northamptonshire. I agree with Eamonn. Now, these are the words. These are 4 words that I love hearing on the programme. I agree with Eamonn.
Well, you know, once you've got it like a police state where no one's allowed to be arrested, you could be a dictator.
Could be.
Where everyone
but
says,
I
I
would be
agree
a benign
with you.
dictator.
Would you?
Benign one.
Oh,
People would like to say, Uncle Eamonn has decided we're doing this and it's the right thing. I agree with Eamonn. All those lovely, decent people went down to London. Some camped out for 2 or 3 nights to witness a once-in-a-lifetime event, a proper bit of pomp. Why should their days be spoilt by a bunch of self-righteous cretins who obviously have nothing better to do than disrupt other people's lives? Well done, the police.
Yeah, I don't disagree with all the arrests. I disagree with arresting someone just because they've stepped outside their door and they're affiliated with a group.
Why? I would have arrested that man with the placard today.
Well, he was already protesting, so he was doing something that was disruptive. But if you're just preemptively arresting someone before they've done anything,
why do you not
then
find joy and fun in that? Why can you not?
No, listen, I'm a huge royalist. My family were there, and I really want to keep the monarchy. But I also want to live in a free country.
I would be saying, I'm having you. I'm going to arrest you. I'd arrest you.
You'd be a nightmare police officer.
I'd arrest you.
Yeah, I'd arrest you too.
I used to be a prefect at school.
I was head girl.
It was great.
I trump you. Stop it, this is ridiculous.
Have these fold-up umbrellas that you could use as batons.
Oh, my gosh.
But it was good fun.
You can keep your baton to yourself.
It was very good fun. So, anyway, lock them all up.
No, well, anyway. Suddenly, we have to defend the protesters' right to free speech and their opinions. Unfortunately, my right to object to their behaviour, in my opinion, is not so well defended by the wokerati. Free speech in Britain seems to be a one-way street.
Wow. And that one-way street leads us to 16 minutes past 8. And here is the rest of today's top stories. Beginning with the first baby with DNA from 3 people has been born in the UK following a special IVF procedure. The treatment aims to prevent the passing of defective genes from mothers by giving the baby DNA from its mother, father and another female donor.
Parts of England have been hit by hailstorms, heavy rain and thunder, with yellow weather warnings in place until 10 p.m. The Met Office says heavy showers with the risk of thunder and hail will persist over the next 2 days.
Well, this is very bad news. The Irish band Wild Youth has failed to qualify for the Eurovision final in Liverpool. The Dublin band was amongst the 5 acts that were knocked out in the first live semi-final of the week. And one of the reasons that is such bad news is we have the Irish winner in 1970, Dana, with All Kinds of Everything in the studio. She's going to be live with us this morning. And we can't even hail a sort of Irish progression in Eurovision. It's not the way it used to be.
Over.
It's all over. It's all over. But anyway, Dana.
Up next, 2 wonder goals and 1 controversial decision. We'll have all the drama from the Champions League with Aidan McGee next.
Yeah, I'm just getting the words of All Kinds of Everything up here as well. They'll be worth. I'll sing that to you later.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:21, still to come on today's programme.
As Ireland failed to make it to the Eurovision final, we're going to speak to Dana, who won the contest for her country back in 1970. I was only, 9 years of age. And then she went on to become the president of Ireland after that.
Just, yeah, candidate for presidency, I think, yeah.
No, you think? I think she was the president of Ireland,
yeah,
but I might be completely wrong. Somebody check that for me, will
It
you?
has. There you go. Lost to Michael D. Higgins, I'm being told.
What?
Lost to Michael D. Higgins.
But he's still the president. She didn't lose to him. She did to him all those years ago. He's a tiny little man, Michael Higgins. He's a little leprechaun of a man. You should have a picture of him. He's only that height.
You know, in the advert, he's playing me all the old songs. And nearly came back to the singing and wailing of this 17-year-old. Anyway.
All kinds of everything remind me of you.
Just after 9, we'll be asking Labour if they will rule out forming a coalition with the Liberal Democrats. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer was dodging the question. We will try and pin them down on it.
Yes, I think you think he's a jammy dodger. You spotted him well and truly, and you're accusing him dodge. That's what you think, OK? GBviews at gbnews.uk. You can tweet at GB. I've got a Lib Dem tie on today.
It's just a yellow tie. They don't get to claim the colour.
I know. Well,
What am I?
Anyway, it's just coincidentally, it's a yellow tie today.
There you go. You could be in the coalition. You could be the dictator.
I could be in jail if you had your way.
You'd jail a lot of them.
Yes.
Right.
Run the sting. Back pages shape up like this this morning, dominated, of course, by the Champions League match last night. It's stunner apiece after 2 wonder goals were scored in Manchester City's Champions League semi-final against Real Madrid. The Eye celebrates King Kevin for his man of the match display. And the Mail says Iron Brew, with Pep Guardiola claiming the performance has given City the belief they needed to win the tournament. Joining me now in studio, Aidan McGee, with his take on things. And there's a lot to be said here, that it was an away draw, which means the second leg is going to be at the Etihad in Manchester, and that has got to be good news for City.
Yeah, I think that's the difference from last year. It was a reverse situation last year. The first match was played at the Etihad. Real Madrid scored 3 goals, and then it fell apart for City later on. Different this time. We started at the Bernabeu last night. Very cagey in some ways last night, very tactical, a little bit defensive at times, but 2 brilliant goals. Huge disappointment from Carlo Ancelotti that the VAR wasn't consulted because he felt that Bernardo Silva had carried the ball out of play before setting up De Bruyne's goal. But you know what? When it's people were expecting a gunslinging match going toe-to-toe, it was never going to be like that. This is not just top-level European football, Eamonn. This is top-level world football. There's some of the best collection of footballers on the planet on that pitch last night. It was a decent contest. I think City will have the edge in the second leg because it's at the Etihad, as we mentioned, but don't rule out Real Madrid. We saw last night Vinicius Junior must be one of the best 2 or 3 players in the world right now, and he's going to get better and better. He's only a very young Brazilian international. You've got some serious guns on City's side as well. De Bruyne, of course, scored a brilliant goal. 2 excellent goals as well. You have to say the quality of that. And as I say, I think the winner of this match is going to go on and win the European or the Champions League. I don't think there's any doubts about that.
Yeah. OK. We've got a bit of transfer news and I think a lot of it concerning Declan Rice at West Ham.
Yeah, he's been told by West Ham, we understand, that they won't stand in the way of a Champions League bid of around £120 million. They might look into doing a deal where they get between 80 and 100 in exchange for another player coming the other way. Now, Arsenal would be the obvious destination for him at the moment. I'm not sure they're sure about Granit Xhaka long-term because he's kind of advancing in years. He may want to play somewhere else. Maybe he's a solution to getting him to West Ham and maybe getting Rice the other way. But superb business in West Ham over the years. I mean, it took him from Chelsea's academy with surplus to requirements there. Great friends with Mason Mount, his England teammate. And I first saw him play as a centre-back back in 2018. He's morphed into this midfielder who can play deep but also maraud forward as well. He's a mainstay on Gareth Southgate's England team sheet as well. But, I mean, if they get £120 million for him, a player who's discarded by a rival club, that's fantastic business. And they won't stand in the way. The time is right.
Would it be out of the question if Chelsea came back in and reclaimed him?
I think Chelsea's problem this summer is going to be removing players. It's going to be getting players on the list. They've bought so many. They've spent so much money. They don't want to fall foul further of financial fair play. I think he's more likely. So, I mean, Chelsea have been linked with him plenty of times over the last 2 years. I think it's more likely to go to Manchester United, but they've signed Casemiro on this long-term deal. He's had a very good season. I think Arsenal's priority is reducing the age of some key areas of their squad. and he might fit in there well. Although I cannot think, not that it's a particularly difficult move, I cannot think of a time in my lifetime when West Ham have sold a player to Arsenal.
OK. 1st of July, a big date in the boxing calendar.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Liam Smith stopped Chris Eubank Jr. back in January. It was a bit of a surprise result, but he's been having a nagging back injury. First of all, Eubank initiated or activated the rematch clause. I mean, this fight only really went ahead because the Conor Benn fight was scuppered back in the autumn. So it was going to be on June the 17th. It's going to happen at the AO Arena in Manchester now on July the 1st. Liam Smith bullishly said yesterday, Liam Smith beats Chris Eubank Jr. every day of the week and twice on Sunday, and he's in the ascendancy, having won the first fight. But it's got, having said that, in the boxing ring, I wouldn't trust a back injury necessarily. It's only a couple of weeks of grace that he's got to get into the ring. It's a very brutal sport, and if your opponent knows there's an Achilles heel somewhere, then that makes it very dangerous for him. But he needs to do something, Chris Eubank Jr., to re-establish his reputation, because I think he's trading on his father's name, if I'm perfectly honest with you.
The Ashes Test, 16th to 20th of June, Edgbaston. You got some injury news there?
Yeah, Jofra Archer, I mean, look, he struggled for a long time, but he's got an elbow problem. He's only played 5 matches for the Mumbai Indians in the Indian Premier League. He's come back for some more treatment, but it looks for all the world as if he's going to miss out on the Ashes now, and that's a huge blow. Eamonn, he's undergone huge treatment processes. He's had surgery. He's had his situation managed, but as a fast bowler, he's going to be seriously hampered if his elbow injury isn't cleared up. And it looks now as if he's undergoing a period of rest and rehabilitation. Anthony Stokes tweeted yesterday, we're right behind you, but I just can't see Jofra Archer making the lineup now. But it's a major blow for England. I mean, we saw them wiped out last time in the Ashes. They made considerable improvements since then. Under Bazball and everything, but I think June's going to come too soon. We're talking, 4 weeks away? It's not going to happen.
OK. Thanks, mate. Thanks for making our line-up this morning. Aidan McGee there. Thank you.
Stay with us. We're going to be discussing the Archbishop of Canterbury's battle with the government over its migrant policy. That'll be with David Mellor and Emma Burnell next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us 4, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are. Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:33. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of... no, not with that, actually, with the newspapers this morning.
What are you laughing at? Why do you laugh?
I was about to go into a bulletin and I realised, no, I'm supposed to be doing the newspapers. So anyway, here's the Mail. It's asking if this is the end of Trump's new bid to be president after a jury found he sexually abused the writer E. Jean Carroll.
The Eye focuses on the Archbishop of Canterbury's political battle with the government over its policy on migrants.
The Times says that Britain's poised to blacklist Russia's Wagner Group as a terrorist organisation.
Serious medical story front of the Express. Britain's catastrophic obesity crisis. 7,000 diabetes sufferers, this is type 2, die needlessly every year.
We're going through the papers one last time this morning with David Mellor and Emma Burnell. And Emma, we're going to start with you in this story, which we've been reading in bulletins all morning. And I have to say, it's one of those stories, and this happens occasionally. I'm in bed, you know, looking through the newspapers first thing when I wake up, and I sat and couldn't get my head around this incredible story, front of The Guardian. First UK baby born with DNA from 3 people. So what's happened here?
So basically, they've got the father and the mother, and I think it's something 98-point-something% of the DNA will be theirs. So all of the sort of traits that you would expect in a child naturally born to 2 parents. But what they've done, fascinatingly, and I couldn't tell you the detail because obviously these are very clever scientists, they've put in a certain amount of the mitochondrial DNA from a 3rd donor egg that will protect this child from certain inherited diseases that might have come from the original parents. So it's like a sort of, almost like a pre-birth inoculation to ensure that the child will be healthy and happy, perfectly, you know, usually born to the 2 parents, but with this added protection from a 3rd donor egg, which is just extraordinary.
And apparently 6,000 babies are born every year with mitochondrial disorders, things such as, I think, spina bifida was one of them, and this will address that. So I think that's absolutely fascinating.
It is, and you know, I'm never ceased to be amazed at what medical science is doing and can do, and I'm just so grateful that we live in a time where these things can be done.
Right, well, you talk about science, from medical science to other types of science. And David, this is The Guardian, this is online, and we're talking about AI.
Yes, this is just shows the other side of science. You know, science can solve a lot of problems. Science can create a number of problems. I hope that, I'm surprised this AI story, which they've had online for 8 hours, they haven't put it into the main paper, because what it really says, a group of people have done a study of the impact of AI and are really suggesting whether it poses an existential threat and risk to the health of millions. I'd just like to read just one paragraph from this report, which says, "We are now seeking to create machines that are vastly more intelligent and powerful than ourselves. The potential for such machines to apply this intelligence and power, whether deliberately or not, and in ways that could harm or subjugate humans, is real and has to be considered." Now, you see, I like to think I'm reasonably well informed, but I know nothing of any of this. And I think an awful lot of people, this is creeping up on the world without people actually understanding that this artificial intelligence opens a whole new dimension to our existence.
What do you do about it? Because on the one hand, we're being told that the UK is actually a bit behind in AI and we need to keep up with the sort of arms race, if you like, so that we can protect our national security, make sure that our government databases or our defences aren't in some way infiltrated. But on the other hand, we're all saying we need to stop it. I mean, it's really difficult.
Well, it is very difficult. Of course, the problem is it's very... with people fretting about some of the things that people fret about that aren't really worth fretting about that much. I'm thinking about people in government. What are we going to do to actually deal with the situation? Just to take one dimension of it, only one. If AI takes over a whole lot of basic work, and some of the work won't be quite so basic, what are we going to do with a community that will not have any jobs? I mean, that's frightening, actually.
But I think... Absolutely agree. Totally agree with you. The people who are inventing AI and creating AI, the scientists, they know the dangers, and yet they still go
That's
ahead.
The point. That's the point.
Well, there has to be a change to the laws, and it has to be a global, joined-up thing. And we've seen it with Dolly the sheep, and we know that we're not allowed to do, cloning of human beings, for example. It's illegal for obvious reasons. We should be able to do the same with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not about stopping development. It's about guardrails and regulation, and we've got to have those guardrails. I mean, it's quite terrifying that Terminator turns out to be a prophetic film rather than a great bit of entertainment. But that is exactly the plotline of that film. Robots get cleverer than us and decide that we're surplus to requirements.
We've seen the movie already. We know how it ends.
We know how it ends.
I mean, when an AI person starts presenting this show, how will you feel?
They won't be able to recreate the banter that
There is no AI, Eamonn. There just could never be.
The sexual chemistry that just oozes throughout this whole programme. Who said, oh, my God?
This is when I'm too old to fret about that.
This is the bit that Isabel they can't get.
They don't get it.
Who's going to be able to recreate how you feel for me?
I mean, I don't think an AI could have, for example, come out with that sentence.
Indeed. Right, let me ask you this.
Not unless it had gone loopy, anyway.
This is The Guardian, page 5. There's little evidence that treatments for chronic pain work. Now, the one thing the medical industry hates is dispensing painkillers, right? So they all come up with the idea. If you go to hospital and something like, for instance, when I had my shoulder broken, they would give me paracetamol for my shoulder. You might as well have rubbed me with a wet lettuce leaf. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I realised that the way that you got medication in the NHS hospital was that people would just scream. So in the ward, they would scream. So 3:15 on one Wednesday morning, I saw this for a game of soldiers, and I just started screaming till I got what I wanted. But it's
like being a baby. It's like being a baby back in Belfast.
It was.
That Eamonn Holmes is screaming the place down again.
I tell you, David, if
Put
you
him
are
down.
in pain
it's a
and you
serious
know
point.
your body, and you know and you say, I need more painkillers, oh, you'll be all right, you'll be fine. I'll not be fine. And then you hear this nonsense that, oh, but the side effects will be awful. Well, how could the side effects be any worse than the pain one is going through in the first place?
I mean, that's a sort of separate issue, and there is a huge problem with painkiller addiction.
Opioids?
And the opioids scandal in the US, which is really quite appalling. I read a fascinating book on the Sackler family and how, much like the tobacco industry for years did, they completely suppressed all of the research into this. This story is slightly different in that what they're talking about is that people in chronic pain are being prescribed antidepressants.
Yes.
And there's actually, it seems the evidence is not there that these help.
Yeah.
There are people...
I don't really see the connection as to why dealing with your mental mood helps your pain.
Well, I'm guessing that A, there's a certain amount of placebo effect, and B, serotonin production, which is what antidepressants do, might help you to manage your response to pain. But I just feel we need to do, going back to my first phrase, we're in an extraordinary world of medical breakthroughs. They've got to be better ways, ways that don't involve huge financial scandals and medical addiction, and ways that actually work rather than just pumping out these pills that we've got in hand, as it were. So I think there, and I know people suffering from chronic pain. It's not a case of just getting through. It can really debilitate your whole life. So it's. I have every sympathy, but what I don't want to do is see people being told this will help when it won't.
Well, I don't want people to be deprived of tablets when they will help or they're better than the alternative.
Absolutely.
You might as well suck on a nettle, or you would do anything to get rid of the pain.
And that's it. People who are in that kind of pain. I was reading a story about a woman who basically invented the concept of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And then she had a terrible injury. And it wiped out her career for 20 to 30 years. So they need help, but we've got to make sure it's the right help.
Yeah. Now, talking about wiping out careers, David, John Lewis, the boss of John Lewis, and that includes Waitrose and all sorts of places, will face a confidence vote by staff members today. Now, this is very, very interesting. As I understand it, this woman is an ex-civil servant.
Yes.
And she's running this big commercial entity now. Things don't seem to be going too well at John Lewis at the moment in terms of what it's worth. But the latest thing was, I read in the papers on Sunday, and I know people who went shopping, apparently if you go to Waitrose now, they've got the lights turned out and they've no heating on and things as part of being environmentally friendly. So the whole experience is like visiting a ghost train or something. So I just have to laugh because this is just like one disaster after another. Tell us more.
Well, it is. And as you say, The Guardian online says the boss of John Lewis, Dame Sharon White, will face a confidence vote by staff members. Because remember, the staff own the business.
Yeah.
And she is looking for ways of bringing in fresh investment. On the face of it, nothing wrong with that. You see, the interesting thing is, in this fast-changing world, nothing is forever. I mean, I've been a long-standing John Lewis customer. I don't think that I'm responsible solely for the fact a lot of other people don't go, but I love Waitrose. But it's actually got to the point now where what used to be regarded as assets in that business are no longer regarded as assets. Things change. And I have to admit, you know, it is odd that somebody who had a distinguished career as a civil servant is deemed to be the right person to run a retail business like that. But the reality is that John Lewis has slipped down to become a source of, people are saying, well, you don't want to end up like John Lewis. When, of course, a few years ago, people were saying, John Lewis, what a perfect recipe for a classic business, you know?
OK, guys, you've been classic reviewers this morning. Really do appreciate that. Thank you, Emma and David. And with that time approaching 9:15, we'll say goodbye to the guys and we'll bring you up to date with today's top stories.
The US jury found Donald Trump sexually abused the magazine writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s and then defamed her by branding her a liar. He must now pay nearly £4 million in damages to the columnist. Trump's called the verdict a disgrace, saying he will appeal.
The Archbishop of Canterbury will condemn the government's illegal migration bill in Parliament later today. The legislation aims to detain and promptly remove people who arrive in the UK in small boats, either to their home country or a third country like Rwanda.
The Royal College of Nursing will be balloting its members in England on whether to take more strike action. If nurses vote in favour, strikes could occur at every NHS trust in England.
Parts of England have been hit by hailstorms, heavy rain and thunder. Yellow weather warnings in place until 10 o'clock tonight. The Met Office says heavy showers with the risk of thunder and hail will persist over the next 2 days. Snowdrops and daffodils, butterflies and bees, sailboats and fishermen, things of the sea.
Oh, a duet.
And she was Dana. She was only, 17 or so when you did?
Oh, and I'm willing to lie. I was 18.
18. And she won the Eurovision Song Contest with this song. Let's have a look.
Oh, wow.
Lovely.
Voice of an angel.
Oh, are you talking to me or Eamonn?
To you. Don't make his head any bigger.
How did that little song, and I mean, I remember I was 10 years of age at the time, and I remember you coming back to Derry, and they had a special plane called the Dana.
Operation Dana.
Yes. Dana, and the contest was in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Which you know very well, Isabel. And you came back, and everybody, it seemed to be the whole of Ireland turned out for you.
Oh, it was fantastic. When I left to go to Amsterdam, 2 cleaners and a porter waved us goodbye. And when we landed back in Dublin Airport, there was about 5,000 people hanging off the building.
Yeah.
And then the first time that a Southern Irish plane landed in Northern Ireland.
Right.
So it was very unifying, and it was the music united the communities in the north, over the border. But then it was, thank God, it was a hit all through Europe. And I must never forget the writers, 2 amateur writers, compositors in a newspaper, Derry Lindsay and Jackie Smith.
But in all seriousness, I was thinking about it, looking at it, and I'm looking at a lot of the acts that take place now and whatever it is. Could a song like All Kinds of Everything ever win Eurovision again, or is that time gone?
It's a hard one to answer that. But what restored my faith, wouldn't you love to keep Eurovision a political agenda-free zone and let it be about the music and the performance? Portugal won in 2017. He looked a mess. Nobody had styled him. The song had the longest intro in the history of Eurovision, and he smashed it. All the jury votes and all the public votes voted for the song and for him.
Yeah.
So yes, you can actually beat the system.
Again.
Yeah.
Eurovision, I presume, completely changed your life.
Oh yeah.
Do you still think it has that same magic?
I think Eurovision, any platform that allows people to come together and celebrate in a good way, I would never knock it. And for unknown writers, I mean, look at Derry and Jackie Smith, unknown writers to have that platform, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. So what happened to you? You won the contest, and then just talk us through the following year of your life and what it looked like.
Oh, it was hectic. It was like a roundabout.
She was on every single TV programme, whether it was Cilla Black, Cliff Richard, Saturday Night.
Right through the 70s into the 80s.
Every TV programme there was.
More than the dot, they said. It was on more than the dot. For those viewers who remember the dot at the end of the TV. No, it was hectic. But the best thing that happened to me was the follow-up record was a complete flop.
Oh.
What was the follow-up?
It was called, you see, I Will Follow You If You Follow Me. And actually, Olivia Newton-John did the demo.
Right.
And it was a complete flop. And I had a wonderful agent, Dick Katz. He said, OK, you can go back to normal life or you can stay and fight. And it was the first time anybody had asked me what did I want to do. So I said, OK, we'll stay and fight. And the following year, when Eurovision came around, I had a hit all over Europe with a song called Who Put the Lights Out? So that kind of ensured I wasn't a Eurovision one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
And then, thank God, I had a number of hits after that.
We got talking a while back, a few months ago, when they knew that Ukraine couldn't hold the contest, and we both firmly believed that the contest should not be held in Liverpool, Newcastle, Glasgow, whatever. It should have been held in Belfast.
Yeah.
Because of the war history, the war-torn the idea of peace and reconciliation and whatever.
Yeah.
No one agreed with this, but we definitely thought that it should have been held in
We definitely put that forward.
Yeah.
Although I was in Liverpool yesterday, and I would not begrudge Liverpool anything.
Well, it's practically Irish.
Oh, they're wonderful people. And all the volunteers, the Eurovision volunteers, I'm saying hello to them again because they're just marvellous. There's a buzz, there's a happiness. Listen, I wouldn't begrudge Liverpool anything.
Last night, they got kicked out. Ireland lost their place.
Yep.
What a shame.
Yep. But I didn't realise that last night was an entirely public vote, no music jury vote. I think that's very difficult to overcome.
That's strange.
No, well, Isabel was saying how it changed your life, Eurovision. It changed your life to a degree that it was part of the impetus that made you or felt you could run to be the President of Ireland.
I heard you elevated me to the President
Yes,
of Ireland,
yes,
and I want
thought-
to
I thought
thank you
were.
very much.
But you lost to the wee man, Michael D. Higgins, didn't you?
Yeah.
And he's still the President.
Yeah, twice
Yeah.
I was nominated. I was the first independent ever nominated to run. And, you know, honestly, I had no desire to be in politics because we saw politics fail. And I had no desire to be in politics. But I think, like most people, I hate when people feel that nobody's listening to them. You know, when the person feels that they don't have the connection or they don't have the, you know, whatever it is to get their voice heard, and nobody is listening. And all I had was a platform. So I used the platform to speak for them. And I agreed with them. So I got nominated, and then because of that, I ran in the European election, and I ended up as an MEP.
An MEP.
Yeah.
And how did you find that experience?
Well, it was, first of all, an honour, definitely an honour. As I walked in, Nana Muscuri was walking out.
Do you know who Nana Muscuri is?
Oh.
Big glasses, big spectacles.
Famous
Greek
singer. Exactly. You know,
She sang like a banshee.
Sounds like me then.
this man could have a career singing. You know, I think he's auditioning.
Very good boy.
No, but she said, "You take my cloak." And so one of the things I did was I represented and fought for protection of copyright for the music business, for writers and artists. But I have to say it was a battle every day.
Every day.
Every day a battle.
Oh, you're well out of it. You're well out of it. But that business about giving people a voice is what we try and do on this channel.
I know.
Connect with people and say the things that others are afraid
And
to
that's
say.
why we watch it.
But Dana, do you just go still by Dana, or are you Dana Scanlon now?
Well, Dana, I'll always just be
Yeah,
Dana.
that's good,
Can I
yes.
tell you I'm doing a choir camp at the beginning of June?
What is a choir camp?
Oh, anyone who wants to sing, you don't have to be a singer.
Yes.
We're in a beautiful Dunfield house. It's a stately home. It's a weekend where they'll learn 3 of my songs. They'll sing all kinds of everything with me. And anyone can come. There's gala dinner, there's campfire singing, but a wonderful choir master called Matthew Jones, a young choir master.
Yes.
And on the final day, we will sing together. And if you want to come, because I think you'd like to sing, it's Choir Camp 2023 with Dana.
Okay, and it's held where?
At Dunfield House. It's near Kington in Hertfordshire.
Very good.
And it's beautiful.
Do you know, after the King's coronation concert on Sunday and the choir's prominence in that, I think a lot of people might take you up on it and feel
Well, I think so,
inspired
yeah,
and
I
want to
think
be
so.
involved.
Very-
Oh, you'll make friends for now.
Dana had her own shows in America and everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Did all.
Big time.
But there we go. So much to talk about. We're all out. And this Eurovision week and the final choir camp and then the final Eurovision on Saturday. But no Ireland there. Lovely to
Lovely to see you,
again.
my
Okay.
good
All
friend.
the best.
Oh.
Remember the day I went to your house
Yeah, Damien was just reminding me. I said,
and you fed me cakes?
would I do that to
Oh,
you?
gosh, it was lovely. It was lovely. And your beautiful daughters and everything. Oh,
Thank
it was,
you.
It was a lovely day. Very, very nice.
And you're welcome anytime.
You're very kind. Thank you very much indeed. Right.
We'll have more on Donald Trump after this.
Hello, a very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern with the latest GB News forecast from the Met Office. Some sunny spells, especially in the east this morning, but it's going to turn increasingly cloudy from the west, with heavy showers starting once again. Now, those showers are already with us in the west because we've got low pressure feeding an occluded front in. Further east, yesterday's heavy downpours have cleared, but we've got more on the way for the rest of today. So cloudier conditions in the west, slowly making their way eastwards, and then showers just about possible anywhere into the afternoon, but particularly inland, particularly for central and eastern parts of England into central Scotland. These showers, where they do occur, will be very lively. Again, some thunder, some hail in places, and they'll be slow moving. Not everyone will catch a shower. In between the showers, especially around coast, there'll be some sunshine and temperatures will reach the mid to high teens. Drier towards the far north of Scotland, but here there's a lot of low cloud and mist, and that's certainly affecting eastern and northern Scotland during Wednesday night. Elsewhere, some clear spells, but further showery rain will affect Northern Ireland, western Scotland, western parts of England and Wales. Some more persistent rain possible in some spots across Northern Ireland. Temperatures again dipping to around the mid to high single figures, 10 or 11 in one or two spots. But a generally cloudy start to Thursday, particularly towards the west. The cloud and the showery rain will once again move east through the day, and by the afternoon it's a mix of sunny spells and showers. Once again, the showers will be hit and miss. They're not going to affect everyone, and especially around coast there will be some sunshine in between. Temperatures reaching 17, perhaps 18 Celsius, so a slight cooling trend later this week before those temperatures rise again into the weekend, because from Friday, especially in the north, and into Saturday across the whole of the UK, drier and sunnier weather is on the way, and as a result temperatures will rise.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Donald Trump's presidential bid hangs in the balance as he's ordered to pay his sexual abuse victim $5 million.
Hello there, 1 minute past 9, Wednesday the 10th of May. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. A jury in New York has decided that Donald Trump sexually abused the writer E. Jean Carroll in the 90s, but rejected the claim that he raped her. Reacting to the verdict, Trump called it part of the biggest witch hunt of all time.
The Home Secretary has warned the House of Lords not to defy the will of the British people as peers prepare to debate the illegal migration bill for the first time. Her comments follow the arrival of a barge set to house asylum seekers.
The government was right to hand police extra powers, says the Prime Minister, as the backlash continues to the arrest of anti-monarchy protesters. It comes as the Mayor of London tells the Met to conduct a review of coronation policing.
And Sir Keir Starmer has refused to rule out a coalition with the Lib Dems if Labour fails to win a majority at the next election. Despite major gains in the local elections, pollsters are in doubt the party can secure an overall majority.
And we're also asking you this morning to very kindly cast your votes, if you don't mind, for us here on GB News Breakfast in the National Reality TV Awards and the Trick Awards. And you can also vote for the very special Eamonn Holmes, who is up again for Best Presenter at the Trick Awards.
I think the best thing to do is maybe go to the GB News. Well, I don't know if they're doing it.
Go to my Instagram. If you're on Instagram, I'll try and put it on Twitter
my
later.
Instagram and my Twitter, and it'll sort of, if you click on that, you'll see a link to all of these things. But I would think if we're doing it for one thing, it's like Dana said in that previous interview, it's about giving people a voice who feel they're not connected or they don't have anything to say or no one's listening to them. And whatever you think of our programme in the breakfast section for 3.5 hours every day, we do try and ask the questions or put the scenarios that no one else is doing and not just following the press releases.
Yeah, absolutely. And this programme was only launched last January, and to be up there with well-established programmes that have been around for decades is an honour, and we would love your vote. So please, you've only got till Friday to cast it, and we would be very grateful.
Very grateful. Well, viewers and listeners, our top story this morning is that a jury in the USA has found that Donald Trump did sexually abuse magazine writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s.
The former president was ordered to pay her $5 million in damages after the jury found his comments, calling the accusations a hoax and a lie, had harmed her reputation.
Now, after the verdict, Trump took to his social media platform, Truth Social, to deny he actually knew Miss Carroll.
I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. The verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time.
Well, earlier we spoke to the American attorney, Gloria Allred, who told us that Trump's previous scandals had damaged his chances of winning the case.
Well, it definitely is a victory for E. Jean Carroll. And she alleged that she was raped. And even though the jury did not find in this civil lawsuit that she was in fact raped, instead finding that she was sexually abused, they also did find that she was defamed. And they found in favor of her to the extent of $5 million in damages. She was certainly helped by that Access Hollywood tape, which was played for the jury and played for Donald Trump in his deposition testimony under oath before the trial. And he was asked about that by Ms. Carroll's attorney. And he stood his ground on the Access Hollywood tape and didn't try to get out from under it, basically affirmed that he believed that if you're a star, you can grab a woman by her genital area. And of course, he used a pejorative term for that. So he indicated, yes, he's a star. And I don't think that helped him with the jury. And then he didn't testify in front of the jury, which he didn't have to do. But that would have been a complete disaster if he had done that, because he can't help but lie. That's what he does.
I like talking to Gloria Allred. I mean, she just shoots from the hip. She says it as it is.
I was just looking for the Mirror, actually, in amongst all the papers, because the headlines here, Trump, the sex attacker. And I mean, such damaging headlines here in the UK, they would finish any British politician. The question we will pose to the assistant editor of The Spectator, Cindy Yu, now, is this the end for Trump, or is he untouchable?
Well, I don't think he's untouchable, but this is certainly not the end. In fact, you know, his base have already come out and said, we don't believe this. This is yet another legal witch hunt against Donald Trump. And sometimes they have value, they have a point in saying that, but also, you know, as the different criminal and civil trials weigh up, it does become ever harder to kind of, for your average normal swing voter, your moderate voter, to really go for him. So I think the base will never change their mind about him.
It just reminds us all, I suppose, how entrenched politics is in America. You're either, you know, come what may, you're liberal, you're come what may, you're effectively a Trump supporter, or you're kind of an undecided. But no one seems to care what happens either way, whether Biden's half asleep or whatever it might be, or whether Trump's sexually assaulting women. They just vote along colour lines.
Yeah, I mean, the options are not great, are they? I mean, but then again, in British politics, often the options are not great either.
Politics is a problem.
Yes.
So, OK, listen, what happens now? Because he's going to appeal this based on some of the stuff that was included, including the transcript from the Access Hollywood tape, where he made these claims that you could grab anyone if you were a star. You didn't even have to ask. But he's saying that's totally irrelevant. That's prejudicial.
Yes, well, he's going to appeal, and while he's appealing, he doesn't have to pay that $5 million. So I guess having this dragging out in the courts in some ways is good for some of his supporters, because they'll think, well, you know, Donald Trump is fighting back against the New York liberal elite, all of this sort of stuff. Again, it comes back down to the moderate swing voters. Does this turn them off? And actually, when it comes to Trump and sexual assault, as you say, Isabel, it would kill, a lesser politician. But for him, that Access Hollywood tape has been out for years, and it didn't damage him in 2016.
Well,
so
look,
who knows?
Cindy, just hold that thought, because we have Pat McFadden, the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, available. We have a number of things to talk to Pat about, and we'll come straight back to you. Pat McFadden, I presume you could hear what Cindy Yu was saying. We're talking about Donald Trump and how, you know, what's been associated with his name, Pat, would finish any politician in Britain. I mean, just from his personal life alone and his opinions of women and things like that. What's different in the USA? What's different that he can still survive? I mean, we're not sure that even this latest case would finish a presidential run. It may well do, but not necessarily so, Pat.
Well, you know, I think we should be careful about getting in a glass house and lecturing people in the United States, but across politics, whether it's here or there, I would say we should be careful not to normalise things that wouldn't have been normalised in the past. I mean, a couple of years ago, you effectively had an attempted coup in the United States to deny the result of the presidential election. You've had all this. Donald Trump once said something along the lines, I might not have this exact, but it was something along the lines of, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and it wouldn't make any difference to my supporters.
Yeah.
And that's how entrenched things are there. So, of course, you know, we'll have our view, but we should take care about standards in our own politics too, of course.
But the difference is, Pat, your leader can't even say, I might be open to a pact with the Lib Dems, because he's worrying about that finishing his electoral chances or not. And my point I'm trying to get to is, surely there's a way of just saying straight, if I need them, I'd come on board. I wouldn't be against asking the Lib Dems, but at the moment, we don't need them. Is there not a way that he can sort of say yes and say no at the same time?
I thought that was a very neat pivot there to two very different subjects. Look, I think this question about pacts and coalitions is very presumptuous. You know, people watching your programme or the voters in my constituency, what they want to know is that our politicians working hard to solve the country's problems and look out for their interests. You got interest rates probably going up tomorrow, a lot of problems with the cost of living out there. They don't want to hear politicians making presumptions about what might happen after the next election. I'd do a deal with this person or a coalition with that person. So, you know, I'm a football man, and I think you are too, Eamonn, and there's a saying in football you'll be familiar with, which is you should do your talking on the pitch. And I think politics should maybe take a lesson from that, rather than making presumptuous statements about what should happen afterwards. Well, we are aiming for a Labour majority at the next election. That's what we want. but we've got to get the trust of the people to do that, and that's the job we're focused on.
Yes, but to be clear, when you say they shouldn't be talking about what happens after the election, and yet Sir Keir Starmer has talked about what would happen after the election when it comes to the SNP, and he's ruled that out. So it's the fact that he actually doesn't want to admit that he probably would go into a deal with the Lib Dems because he knows a lot of people wouldn't really want a coalition.
Well, 2 points I'd make in response to that. When it comes to the SNP, it's not really speculation about what would happen after the election. That's a comment on such a fundamental difference here where you've got one party there that wants to break up the United Kingdom. That's the whole
So you don't
purpose
have
of the
fundamental
existence
differences
of
with the Lib
SNP.
Dems, for example, on the European Union or perhaps
Well,
on
we
proportional
don't-
representation? Oh dear.
Well, we're not a nationalist party. We want to keep the UK together, and that's a fundamental difference. But it's not a comment about what might happen after the election. We'll be in Scotland and we'll be fighting to keep the UK together. And in fact, I would argue the Labour Party is the best placed of all the political parties in the UK to keep the UK together, because I think we, hopefully after the next election, will be in a position where we've got good representation in Scotland, England and in Wales.
But to be clear, are you saying then you don't have fundamental differences with the Liberal Democrats, who have openly said that they would like to reverse the Brexit vote, that they would like to change the way people vote in this country, perhaps in favour of proportional representation?
No, I'm saying that we're aiming for a majority Labour government. And actually, I hope that if we get a majority Labour government, it doesn't just happen once, because I don't want a Labour government just to be a sort of speed bump or an interregnum between two periods of Tory government. I think the Tories have made such a mess of running the country over the past 13 years that it's going to take a long time to turn things round. And that's why in my job as a Shadow Treasury spokesperson, I'm always very careful to say that when it comes to the manifesto, everything will be very carefully costed and funded, and that we don't overpromise and try to promise things that we can't deliver. I think it's going to take time to turn the country round. So I'm looking to a majority Labour government, maybe not even just once, but twice.
Can I ask you about the illegal migration bill that's going into the Lords today? The Archbishop of Canterbury on the front of the eye today, ready to have a big clash with Number 10. Do you think that the Archbishop should foray into politics?
Well, we've got this system in the United Kingdom where we have members of the clergy who are members of our legislature. That's part of our constitution. So he's got a right to his view, and every time he or any other leading archbishop or bishop says something political, there'll always be those who say, stick to your day job. But as long as it's part of our constitution to have members of the House of Lords who are also bishops and archbishops, then they've got a right to speak about legislation. So constitutionally, yes, he does have a right to his view.
Yeah. Well, Pat, you do your talking on the pitch.
I'll try to. Thank you very much.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Pat McFadden's the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury on a very sunny day there on Westminster
I was thinking
Green.
a very sunny-looking pitch behind him there.
Yes, it is.
I need to get my cap on.
Yes,
Right.
indeed. Right, with the
Thank
time at 9:15, let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
Another phone hacking trial involving the Duke of Sussex begins today. Prince Harry is suing Mirror Group newspapers over what he's calling unlawful information gathering. But the tabloid is contesting the claims. It argues that some have been brought far too late.
The first baby with DNA from 3 people has been born in the UK following a special IVF procedure. The treatment aims to prevent the passing on of defective genes from mothers by giving the baby DNA from its mother, father and a female donor.
Parts of England have been hit by hailstorms, heavy rain and thunder, with yellow weather warnings in place until 10 o'clock tonight. The Met Office says heavy showers with the risk of thunder and hail will persist, and that's going to be over the next 2 days. A sneak preview now of To The Point in 15 minutes' time with Andrew Pearce and Beverly Turner. Good morning.
Morning.
guys.
Morning.
Good morning. What's got you hot under the collar today?
Trump.
Yeah.
We're gonna
That's a very nice collar you've got
Thank
there.
you. Well, Isabel and I just glanced at each other. It's
memo.
amazing how many times we sort of accidentally coordinate our looks, isn't it?
It's all agreed in advance, of course.
Of course it is.
So what do we think then, Trump?
Obviously, I don't think it will finish him off.
No.
Because nothing seems to.
No, I agree with you, but my question is, why does it not finish him off?
It shouldn't finish him off on this occasion.
Yeah.
This feels outrageous to bring something 23 years later.
That is extraordinary.
What, just because of the time? I mean, a lot of sexual allegations come to light many years after.
This is a journalist. She's used to speaking for herself, talking out. I mean, it is very strange. It was a civil jury, so there's no criminal conviction.
Yeah.
But he can now be called a sexual predator. But I think this will reinforce his base.
Completely. And this off the back of the Mar-a-Lago files and the business misdemeanor, it just is building a picture that the authorities, the powers that be in Washington, do not want him to run again. And it will play to his base. It will strengthen those
As
who
a
like
woman,
Donald
what
Trump.
would it do for you as a voter? I mean, he may speak politically, you might say, I like that policy, I like that policy. But his personal standards and what he said previously about women, what does that do to you?
That clip of him when he talked about grabbing women in the proverbials, your genital area, for me, at the time, was absolutely disgusting. Am I realistic that men have those conversations behind closed doors? Absolutely. Of course we know those sorts of conversations go on.
Not with me. I can absolutely guarantee
Of course, but they do. Sadly, they do. So realistically, we know those conversations go on. At the time, I thought it was, if that didn't bring him down in that election, this won't. To hear it from his mouth of how he felt about women, how he felt about his power, more critically, and how he could use it, then an allegation 23 years later from somebody of which he hasn't been found guilty.
He says he doesn't even know her.
He doesn't even know her. For me, hearing him say that was more shocking. But in a way, it didn't surprise me because we know those conversations happen.
And the court awarded her more damages for defamation than for the sexual assault, which is extraordinary because he called her a liar.
A lot of extraordinary things you should talk about, guys.
And we're going to talk about Archbishop Welby too, who really intensely irritates me, and he's going to criticise the Stop the Votes policy in the House of Lords today.
Scratch that itch.
He is a terribly irritating man.
We'll take a short break. I will be back, and we'll be talking about Russia's Wagner Group and how they're poised to be blacklisted by the UK.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:22. We're going to talk about the Wagner Group today because, according to The Times, the UK is set to officially label them, the Russian mercenary group, as a proscribed terrorist organisation. I suppose the big question, really, that I put to Cindy, who's still with us here in the studio, is why now? Why not? I mean, it's been this awful mercenary group for a long time.
Yes, that's a good question. Well, I guess we're seeing the Ukraine having a counter-offensive very soon in the spring. And this is a bit of a symbolic move, really, to kind of bolster that support. And some, more cynical actors in Westminster have said that actually this comes because the UK doesn't know what else to do. It is so symbolic in some ways. But I think that would be a bit unfair because actually what it does do is that it means it financially sanctions this mercenary group so that they can't go through British financial institutions. It also prevents them from being able to sue British journalists, which shockingly they had done in the past, that the nerve of them coming to the UK to sue British journalists in UK courts. But anyway, this would prevent them from doing that.
And these were the guys who were at the time last year trying to kill Zelensky, weren't they? Do you remember in the immediate aftermath of the invasion, there was this huge fear that they were going to try and decapitate him and capture him?
And he's had to live in a bunker. His wife has had to be separated and living a separate bunker of her own, their kids with her. So it's been very terrifying times. And these are very unscrupulous people, they're mercenaries, right? So wherever there is conflict, especially in Africa, I understand, they have some kind of hand in that because they're paid for army, basically. The head of them, Prigozhin, is known as Putin's chef for his close links to Putin, but has also, recently actually criticised Putin for not giving the Wagner Group enough arms. So this link between mercenary and state is actually very, very small, very blurred.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Cindy, appreciate your take. Thank you very much indeed. With the time coming up to 9:25, we say goodbye to you. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoyed your company today. Hope you've enjoyed the programme. We'll be back from 6 o'clock in the morning.
But don't despair, because up next, it's Bev and Andrew with more for you on To The Point.
Good morning.
9:30, Wednesday the 10th of May, To The Point on GB News.
That's right. We're going to be reflecting on this Trump story this morning. I have quite strong feelings about it, and far be it for me to defend Trump for any sort of sexual allegations, but something 23 years later,
I know.
I think we need to discuss this.
Why did it take the journalists so long to speak out? We don't normally take our time, do we,
No.
as journalists? Also, in the House of Lords today, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby.
You love him, don't you?
I love him, of course. Is going to attack the Stop the Boats policy. The unelected House of Lords trying to thwart the will of the House of Commons. That's a huge story for us. And also a really good story on the front of the Telegraph today. You can leave, under new plans, you can leave school at 18, having done your A-levels, and start training as a doctor immediately.
Oh.
Which could be really important.
Hopefully helpful. Right, we'll see you in just a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used